All right, y'all. I, this one, I've been Birdman rubbing my hands all day for this one. I got him. Cody Tucker, the Cody Tucker Show. Sir, I can't do you no justice. Please introduce yourself to the people out here.
All right. So I'm Cody Tucker, host of the Cody Tucker Show. I might have seen some of the little random fact reels that I do. Uh, yeah, and maybe some interviews with different people, comedians, adult film actresses, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's me.
So I'm dying to know how do we get here? Music is background, just like
Yep.
a lot of us, but I
hmm
guess it did something to you a little bit more impactful for you. And
Yeah.
yeah, if you could.
Uh, so you mean like as far as like why I put so much
Yes.
like looking into like the history and everything?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's hard to say like where it because I just always have been fascinated by like looking up like the history of different bands, different artists, seeing like where they came from, and then like always kind of going down like little rabbit holes of like, okay, I like this band. Who did they listen to?
Mhm.
And then looking at those people, and then keep going and going and going, and then see like where it all starts. But I remember so like my dad, my uncles used to just get hammered and start like any song that came on the radio, they'd be like, "Oh, do you know who sings this?" And I'd be like, yeah." And then I would start naming them. And I guess like getting that attention of like knowing that stuff, like
Okay.
triggered something of like, oh, I want to know like everything I can about music.
So were you always this inquisitive? It's just that's part of your natural
Yeah,
being, and now you just focus it on towards the music.
exactly. Yeah. I mean, I focus it on like, I mean, I would say history probably
Okay.
more so than anything, but like music and movie history like in that world, like it's all history related to me.
Mhm.
I just enjoy like kind of pop culture more so than anything else.
So I know we all do our own form of research, but your style
Mhm.
of research is it? Do you do a lot of cross referencing?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, I'm definitely not like perfect on I mean, I've gotten some stuff wrong multiple times, but I always try to like at least make sure I can find two completely separate sources that say the same thing.
Okay.
And yeah, so I mean in a sense it's cross referencing, but and I always try to like make sure the sources are pretty decent, like not just like somebody on like Reddit saying saying
Right.
something like actually actually making sure it's pretty legit. But yeah, it's just like hours a day reading all
So
that
you're
kind of
like
stuff.
really immersed. I mean,
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. Like that's pretty much all I do. I mean, that's like what I mean. I consider, I guess, my job, even though it's not really
yeah.
like a job. But yeah, like I mean, that's I probably put more than the amount of hours you would put into like a normal job into that. I would say,
So how do you
yeah.
go about picking your targets for research? Because the last clip I just saw,
hmm
who's the babysitter? I'm
Oh,
like,
Keanu Reeves
yeah.
used to be babysat by Alice Cooper.
What?
Yeah.
How do? Please walk me through that research. Walk me
Okay.
through that from start to finish.
So what I'll usually do is I'll just like think of somebody in my head. So like Alice Cooper came up like in my head where I was just like, or actually it go like really into like the inside baseball or whatever. I'll go through Spotify, go through
Okay.
like any of the artists that I have saved on my Spotify
Okay.
in alphabetical order, and then just start researching every single one of them until I find something that sounds interesting. So instead of like, oh, they were born in this city, blah, 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 because nobody cares about that really.
Right.
But like, if I find like a connection to somebody else, so like the Alice Cooper one, I was just reading a ton of stuff about Alice Cooper, and at one point saw that he was written. I mean, that he at one point had been, you know, babysitting Keanu Reeves. So
That,
yeah,
okay. Does that speak to you about how much nepotism runs in the business, TV, film, and music
um,
business?
So that's a good point. So whenever I was making those videos, it had nothing to do with me trying to like expose nepotism, because
Okay.
I honestly don't think nepotism is as big of a thing as people make it seem.
Okay.
I think, okay, like maybe it gets you a foot in the door
Hmm.
for sure. It would be ridiculous not to, think that. But if you don't have the talent to back it up, it doesn't really matter who your dad is, who your uncle is, who babysat you. Like you're gonna fade away and not become a star. Like, yeah, Keanu Reeves at one point was being babysat by Alice Cooper. I don't think that translates to him being a famous actor at all.
Hmm.
Like, but I mean, there definitely are, some where it's like, huh, like, okay, like now I see why you're in these movies. But like, take like Nicolas Cage. Like
Yeah.
Nicolas Cage, perfect example. That family is massive, like in the movie industry.
Hmm. Hmm.
His uncle is Francis Ford Coppola. Uh, and then like all in that branch, you have like Talia Shire, Adrian from Rocky. That's his aunt. Like you have Sophia Coppola's directed like a ton of movies. Like they're all in that family. But Nicolas Cage also doesn't go by Nicholas Coppola.
That's right.
Like he goes by Nicolas Cage.
That's right.
And as far as I know, like didn't really use that to like make himself a famous actor. Like he purposefully said, I'm gonna pick a different name. So he was playing like Street Fighter, took the character Luke Cage and then made it, Nicolas Cage. But
Okay.
so I don't know if it's nepotism. Like it's hard to say whether it's nepotism or not.
Yeah. But it definitely helps. I would expect it. I'm not surprised when
Mhm.
you see the connections. Like, oh, okay, makes sense. I get it.
Yeah.
Um.
Yeah, well, and if you have someone in your family who is in entertainment, it becomes more realistic to you that you could also be in the entertainment business.
Okay.
So you probably are more likely to pursue it as opposed to somebody who's living in, the middle of like Nebraska, who's never met a famous person, doesn't know any famous people. Like to them, that's probably such a far out idea that they could be a famous musician or actor.
Hmm.
So they don't even pursue it.
Hmm.
Whereas, you grow up in LA and somebody who's famous, like it's obtainable,
Yeah.
you know.
Did
Yeah.
you also have musical aspirations growing up, or you just drawn to the music per se?
No, I always grew up like playing instruments, like playing
Okay.
the guitar. I still play the guitar like every day.
Cool.
I play like, piano a little bit, drums, bass, like kind of the basic instruments. But no, I was always like, I mean, I think I started playing the guitar when I was probably like 4 or 5.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, I've kept that going till now.
But you never thought about, hey, I want to be an artist. I have a story to tell, and
Uh, not really, because I'm a horrible songwriter. I can't write songs. I can play other people's songs
okay.
very well, but as far as like me composing music and like writing songs, writing lyrics, I can't do it. Like or I just think I can't do it. I mean, I
I'm
could,
about to say that sounds more like a self-imposed thing because
but
because no, I mean,
yeah,
yeah, it just that takes time, and when you learn the structure of songwriting and whatever, and you just put your
yeah.
little twist to it. Okay, given everything you've learned in music, do you think you will ever get to a point where you say, you know what, maybe let me put out a song and see how it does?
For sure. For sure. I have thought about doing like maybe even just like an instrumental
Okay,
album, like guitar and like, basically me doing like all the instruments, like basically like Prince, but without the singing and without the talent. But but like doing something like, because I've always found that fascinating. Like musicians who on the record, they're the band, is that one person. Like Prince, all of his albums, he's the guy playing every single instrument.
right.
The Who, it's Pete Townsend playing every instrument. Nine Inch Nails, Trent Reznor does
Just
the
friend,
same
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Like that is fascinating to me. Like people who can do that. And I'm not saying I'm anywhere on that level, but I could do that and put out something.
Well, yeah, I don't
So I've
think that.
definitely thought.
Yeah, I don't think the average musician is a instrumentalist. I think the average is
Yeah.
maybe 1 to 2, and that's the max. But anything more than 3 or 4, then it's like, okay, you have a pretty high IQ, and you're
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
you're way more proficient than other musicians. You never look at yourself as such.
Not really. Like, I do consider myself to be like a pretty decent guitarist for
Okay.
sure. Like,
Okay.
I mean, I've been playing long enough that I should be all right by now. But like piano, I would say like I would give myself maybe like a 4 out of 10.
Okay.
And then like drums, probably like also a 4 out of 10. So like I consider myself to be like slightly below average, or like, maybe even a little mediocre when it comes to like those instruments. So I don't even really consider myself to be like a piano player or a pianist. I just can play, a little bit.
So I want to pick your brains about the instrument part.
Yeah.
So guitar, drums, piano. How
Hmm.
different are they to you when you know what I'm saying? I
Yes.
envy you guys. My dad made me play guitar when I was little, and he was such a
Uh,
hard ass. I quit, and I hate that I quit. He would make me perform in
yeah.
front of family and friends, and that's one of my few
Right.
regrets. Like I wish I stopped playing. But how do you process moving from instrument to instrument, and what does it sound like to you moving from guitar to piano to the drums?
So I feel like anyone who has any kind of like musical ability should be able to play the drums,
Okay,
whether you can play the guitar, piano, because you have to be able to keep rhythm
okay,
to do any of those. And then drums, you're just keeping, as long as you know where the cymbal, snare, kick is, you should be able to keep rhythm and play the drums. Now, for me, like obviously I started like piano way after guitar, and there was like a time where I completely ditched the guitar and didn't play it for like a couple of years and just played piano. And when I
okay,
came back to the guitar, was way better, like night and day better. And it's because like I was learning, you can visualize notes and scales and chords
mhm,
way better on a piano than you can a guitar. Because a piano,
okay,
it's just 8 notes. I mean, octaves, like, like it is so much easier to visualize music on a piano. It's
okay.
probably why most songwriters use a piano to
Use a
write
piano.
music.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Okay. I kind of want to shift gears just a tad bit.
Okay.
Um, guitars, guitar players. I have an unpopular opinion myself that I'm willing to die on this particular hill.
Okay.
Before I do that, give me, I guess, your top five guitarists ever,
Okay. In order or just
and
five?
just your top five.
Okay. Eddie Van Halen,
Okay,
100%. That's number one. I mean,
okay,
the rest won't be in order, but that is 100% in order, number one.
okay.
Jimmy Page, from Led Zeppelin, obviously. Richie Blackmore from Deep Purple.
He's tough. He's tough.
Yeah. I mean,
Ooh.
Hendrix, of course. Um, and five would be, actually, it's a very like overlooked guitarist, but Frank Zappa.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, Frank Zappa is incredible and does not get credit for being as amazing of a guitarist as he is. Yeah, Stevie Ray Vaughan is also up there. I saw
Okay,
the
so you
yeah,
mentioned who I was looking for, Hendrix. Now, I always
yeah.
felt like Hendrix was like the Bruce Lee of guitarists because it's
Okay.
like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, don't you disrespect Hendrix. And I'm just like, I can name 10 guys I will put in front of Hendrix. But for me,
Yeah,
I always go Randy Rhoads, Hendrix. I will die on
yeah,
that. I will
yeah.
die on that hill.
Man, I forgot Randy Rhoads.
Okay.
Yeah, which sucks because I just bought a Rhodes guitar. I should have that
See?
top of the mind.
Yeah, hey, it's
Yeah, I put
crazy.
Randy Rhoads over Frank Zappa. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
which is wild because I don't know, the last few months I've been seeing nothing but Randy Rhoads, like all of my timeline. And all
Amazing.
these stories and these lost footage tapes. For me, my
Yeah.
opinion is without Randy Rhoads, there's no Black Sabbath. I like Tony Iommi, but without Randy, there's no Black Sabbath. If I say that to you, what do you say?
Well, Black Sabbath came out way before. Like, I mean,
I,
Black Sabbath came out in 1970. Randy Rhoads didn't. He joined Ozzy solo in 80,
right.
80, 81.
I just felt that Randy gave them a sound. I don't know, almost because when you say Black Sabbath, you be like which version? It's always
Well, there's. So you mean like because there's Ozzy solo,
right.
which isn't
Yes.
Black Sabbath.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so Ozzy solo, yeah, that's 100% Randy Rhoads all day, which he
Yeah.
had like three main guitars:
Mm-hmm,
Jake
mm-hmm.
Lee or Randy, then Jake Lee, then Zach Wild.
Right.
Which Randy leaps and bounds above any of the other, the others. But Tony Iommi would be, I would put him almost neck and neck with Randy Rhoads, because it's okay. It's sort of like the way that I, and I'm not like start a whole NBA debate, but the way you have to look at like Michael Jordan versus LeBron in my head
Okay.
is that you compare them to the talent of their time.
Yes.
Like obviously one-on-one, Michael Jordan's probably not going to beat LeBron because talent has just skyrocketed over time, which
Mm-hmm.
it's supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
Tony Iommi coming out so much earlier than Randy Rhoads, like it makes Tony Iommi more impressive because there was no one who sounded like that.
Okay.
There was nobody playing these like diminished scales and like this like scary music. Like that did not exist. Whereas by the time Randy Rhoads came out, quite a few examples of it. He's just amazingly talented.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Okay. I like your point of view because you are a guitarist. And I like I said, I throw this in people's faces. I'm like, I don't care. I Randy over Hendrix. Do you feel like Hendrix is a safe bet for everybody? Like he's the safe choice. Everybody picks. Just say Hendrix, just to so you don't avoid it.
Yeah, because he's the most important guitarist of all time.
Okay, how so?
Like, so if you go back to pre-Hendrix, so the year before Are You Experience came out. Our Experience came out in 1967. Go back 1966, 1965. The heaviest guitar sound that there was the Rolling Stones' I Can't Get No Satisfaction. Just the down, 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 down. Like a very simple but distorted sound.
Mm-hmm.
But it's nothing. The next year, you have this guy making like machine gun sound effects. And, a dude who had been kicked out of Little Richard's band because he was too flashy, kicked out of the Isley Brothers band. Yes. And then, goes to England. Like he can't find success in the US, goes to England. Every single guitarist in England, Clapton, Pete Townsend, Jeff Beck, all these guys see him performing at a club of like 100 people and go outside and contemplate quitting. They're like, we probably shouldn't even be doing this anymore. Like, because we'll never be that good. So like, you have to like put it in the historical frame of mind of like, Hendrix was just so much different and so much better than everybody. Like Clapton didn't even come close.
Fair, yeah.
Like none of those people came close to Hendrix.
Okay, chop for chop. Do you put Eddie with Hendrix? Because I
way above.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, if you go overall skills, I don't know if there's anybody better than Eddie Van Halen.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Like overall talent, speed, just like the weird stuff that he could do with the guitar. I don't know that there's anybody that goes above Eddie Van Halen.
I agree.
Technique,
I agree.
like, yeah.
Okay. I like this pushback you're giving me. I'm with it. I'm with it.
No, I mean, everybody's entitled to their opinion, and no opinion is wrong. Yeah. Like, I love having these discussions about, like, Grace, because I have friends who are much more like metalheads than I am, which I am a fan of heavy metal for sure. And so they put like, Dimebag Darrell from Pantera and like all these other people way higher, which I don't. But I completely understand like their opinion with it. Mm-hmm. And I respect it because also when I listen to Pantera, I'm like, God damn, Dimebag is amazing. But yeah. So yeah.
That's funny. For me, like I guess my favorite guitarist for the last 15 years has been Sinister Gates. Like he can do no wrong. I'm a huge Avenged Sevenfold fan, and I just look forward to his solos in every record. I'm like, I don't care what they talking about. I don't know what Shadows is singing about. Let's get to the solo. I will fast forward the song. I think he's just watching him get better and better with every album, and the staying power that band has, I think, is phenomenal. Another favorite band of mine is Ghost. And
I love Ghost.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huge
fan. I saw them not that long ago, actually.
Did you?
In Dallas,
okay.
And they were incredible.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got on the train kind of late with them, but I'm here for it. And My newest favorite band right now is Greta Van Fleet. Um,
Okay, man, I'm not a fan. It's too much of a Led Zeppelin
that's
ripoff.
exactly what. I'm glad
I
you said
can't do
that.
it. I can't. Like, it's too obvious. Like, like it's fake.
Oh,
Like it's an impersonation of Robert Plant. That's all it
okay.
is. It's a guy doing a Saturday Night Live impersonation of Robert Plant. Like, it's one thing to sound similar to someone, because that's
Yeah,
what music is.
yeah,
Like, you grow up being influenced by somebody,
yeah.
and you're gonna sound a little bit like them. Like, Bruce Springsteen has talked endlessly about how influenced he was by people like Wilson Pickett.
Hmm.
And when you listen to Bruce Springsteen, like, there is that kind of, like, a little bit of a Wilson Pickett sound to him, like
Hmm.
that kind of gravelly voice, like all that. But he's not copying Wilson Pickett. To me, Greta Van Fleet is like copying Robert Plant. Like, it's just too much.
It works. I can't help it, man.
Yeah.
I yeah, I think they just dropped the third album a couple months ago. I'm
Hmm.
I'm I'm there, man. I'm a stand for them. So those, yeah, no, those are my three faves for the last few years. Like hands that I look
Okay.
forward to listening to their stuff. Who
Yeah.
stands out to you? With the new age,
Hmm.
the young guns so far.
So I honestly don't listen to a lot of newer music.
Okay,
I mean, I try to. Like, I'm not like, some 80-year-old man that's like, I don't want to hear this crap. Like, I will listen to it and give it a chance. I just, once music started being recorded digitally
okay,
instead of on tape,
okay,
it just became ruined to me. Like, I can't unhear the computer making the music sound fake.
okay.
Like, and not just with like, because it's crazy, because like 9 Inch Nails, it's all computer
Hmm.
basically,
Hmm.
but it doesn't come across that way. Whereas if I listen to like a band, let's say like Greta Van Fleet, like ignoring the Led Zeppelin stuff, I can hear the like pitch correct in his voice, and I can hear the like the weird like how everything's syncopated. It just doesn't sound like a like people playing in a room together.
Okay.
That's like, so but that being said, I do love Ghost. There's like Volbeat, which they've been around for a little while, but I'm a huge fan of them. Sevenfold, of course. And then, here and there's like just a couple people that I'll find like a song or two, and I'm like, oh, okay, I like this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to always revert back to the old stuff, all that
So,
the '60s, '70s, '80s. Um,
yep.
for me, those 3 decades are just probably some of the best music to
Yeah.
ever. You had did a breakdown songwriting teams, and what you said was so poignant.
Hmm.
Can you expound on that? Run it back for those that don't know what you said about this. I don't want to mess up your words, but the way you said it was spot on.
What do you mean?
Well, okay, so in songwriting
Which?
teams, they'll have one song and they'll make four different versions for it because you were talking about the charts, and I was like,
Oh,
that's a
yes, yes. Okay,
yes.
okay. Sorry.
No, no,
Yeah. So now this isn't a thing that happens now, and actually hasn't happened in a long time, but because it came up in a conversation like when the Elvis movie came out, obviously a bunch of people like just completely crapping all over Elvis, saying that
I
he
liked
like.
it.
I love that movie, and I
Okay,
also love Elvis, but Elvis is just a karaoke singer because they didn't write a single song, which is fine. Like, but the argument that I kept hearing was, oh, Elvis just ripped off all these people's songs and we're like screwing them out of their money.
okay,
And the problem is that like that isn't how the music industry worked then. So what would happen is, so those people like Big Mama so the big examples like Big Mama Thornton recorded Hound Dog.
hmm,
Elvis records it a couple years later and it becomes massive. Big Mama Thornton doesn't make any money off of the Elvis version. And so people are like, "Oh, he's screwing over Big Mama Thornton." Wrong. She also didn't deserve that money because she didn't write
she
that
didn't write
song.
it. That's right.
So what happened is there was like these two middle-aged men who worked for a record label as songwriters, and they would write like hundreds of songs. Those songs would be given to artists for them to record.
Mm,
So it was given to Big Mama Thornton, and it was also given to Elvis Presley.
right.
So they don't share their money for those songs. Like, So what they would do is like a record label, let's say like Chess Records, it was like real big back in the day, or Atlantic. They would have these like teams of songwriters, and they would write a song and give it to a R&B artist.
Mhm.
R&B artist records it. It climbs up the charts on the R&B charts. Then they would give it to a country western artist. Country western artist would do the exact same song, climb up the country western charts. Then rock and roll comes around in 1955 ish. Same thing. Like they would give it to a rock and roll artist, and it would climb up the charts. So you would see the same song on all three charts, but there wasn't a lot of crossover listeners. Like there weren't a lot of people listening to the country western stations and then switching over to R&B.
Mhm.
Like, which I mean it's kind of the same now too, but so there's a lot of people who kind of give like a lot of flack to people like Elvis, um, and then you can look at like Chuck Berry. Like he didn't write a lot of his songs. It was the
See
same
that that's
situation.
you
Like,
try to start a fight, but go ahead. Break it down for me.
well, I'm just saying, like, but that's it's two sides of the same coin. Like,
Yeah.
Chuck Berry was recording songs that were very big in like the country western charts, um, because it's just written by the songwriter who, you have a country western artist and a rock and roll artist and an R&B artist on the exact same uh, record label. So they're
Right.
just trying to triple their money.
I like when you said because I remember I used to get the sound scan, and every genre of
Mhm.
music literally had its own top
Yeah.
10, top 20, top 100, and they started condensing it and condensing it. Now it's just basically the Billboard 100, 200. They
Yeah.
have the dance. When for me, I remember I'm going back to my A&R days. When that started happening, I was like, oh, now it's going to be survival of the fittest across all genres. They're just going to take the best of the best. And back then, for us, if you had an urban artist, okay, they did what they do in the urban charts. Awesome.
Mhm.
Now you done took away the urban charts, and now we got to compete with pop. We got to compete with rock.
Mhm.
And even when you said they used to have country western charts, they got rid
Yeah.
of that. Now they done just hodgepodge. Can you speak to that, please?
Yeah. So, I mean, as far as like what they're doing now
Yeah, as
with
for
the
when they
merging of that.
yeah, it's creating this imbalance, and you're not giving those artists of those genres a chance to succeed on their own merit because you're putting them up against,
Right.
let's say, a Britney Spears or back in the
Well,
days. Yeah.
yeah, because that's what killed rock and roll.
Okay.
Like rock and roll is dead. Like when people have always said that, like rock is dead because, whatever. Now punk rock's around. Oh, rock's dead. Nobody wants to listen to this. Grunge is coming out. Rock is dead because, this isn't fun or whatever. Like rock is legitimately dead. Like statistically, it's one of the like lowest charting genres of music. And the vast reason for that is the like blending of the rock and pop charts.
Okay.
Because, let's say probably pre 2000, you would have like Madonna, you know, album that was in 1991 when she did like the Blonde Ambition tour,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that album was, massive album. And then you have Metallica's Black album come out like at the exact same time,
Mm-hmm.
and they would both simultaneously, you know, skyrocket to number one. Now that can't happen because Taylor Swift is always going to be number one, and the rock artists have no way of competing with that. And so you slowly start getting rock bands pushed out in favor of pop. But also pop is so much easier to record, so much easier to write and market because you can take a 19-year-old girl who is attractive to like a teen group, and you can basically print money by
Yeah.
putting this otherwise like mildly talented person.
Yeah.
Whereas like rock and roll, you have to have like a full band, songwriters, like it costs more money, like all this stuff. So mixing those two things pretty much ruined rock music. And a lot of rock music has basically just become what country music is now. Like most country music, if you listen to it, sounds like 70s rock.
And you were able to hear this. You had the musician's ear. I used to have a producer's ear. Now if it sounds somewhat, I'm like, I get it. I don't.
Yeah.
My days of trying to break down the structure of a song, I try to get out of that habit. I can't help that. But you have the musician's ear. You know these same 6, 7, 8 chords, 80% of the songs, these
Hmm.
chords are going to make up the majority of your music. Um, in regards to rock and roll, we share the same sentiment as far as the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I'm just so disillusioned to it at this point. Like I don't even take it serious anymore. Like I don't even watch, no longer watch. The last time I
Yeah.
actually watched it is when they inducted Kiss, and I was like, this is 25 years too late. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
it has it become a money grab at this point.
Uh, so in my mind, so the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is ran by Rolling Stone magazine,
Right.
particularly Jan Wenner, who is a complete piece of crap.
I've heard stories
Just
about him. Yeah.
all around a horrible person, and a person who does not care about music. He's a person who cares about making money and spewing out his ridiculous opinions. And if anybody has an opinion that's different than his, they are wrong and they are shut down. It's the reason why Kiss, it took them so long to get inducted, is because the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame will not put in bands who Rolling Stone magazine doesn't like,
Mhm.
regardless of how big they are. Like Kiss is one of the biggest bands of all time. That does not matter to people like Jan Wenner, who think that they are God's gift to music.
Mhm.
And so yeah, I mean, so it was always this kind of it, it used to be like it was always a money grab, so that's always been a thing, like,
Okay.
but it kind of snuck in there, like you could watch it and not really tell that it was this, like, self-praising money grab. Like you could watch it because you'd see like Bruce Springsteen performing with, Aretha Franklin and Mick Jagger. Like you'd see all these legends performing together, and then over time it just became a like you buy your way into the being in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because they stopped putting rock and roll artists in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Okay. So this I'm gonna say what we're here for. There's
Yeah,
no hip hop artist on the planet that should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Half these R&B
yeah,
folk shouldn't be. So I raise that argument all the time. It's like there's nothing with rockish about hip hop. I say either have a hip hop Hall of Fame or like you said a music
which there
Hall
is.
of Fame. You know,
Yeah,
and I just don't like I abhor the idea. A tribe called Quest. Like who we kidding?
yeah, the only argument I would make against that, like of, you know, hip hop artists being in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Public Enemy, I think, blurs the line.
Okay.
And they write, it was in no way upset that Public Enemy was getting put in because to me, I kind of see them as like, in a sense, being. I mean, they also recorded a song with Anthrax, like one of the biggest metal bands of all time. Like when Public Enemy was inducted, I was like, okay, I kind of get this. And Run DMC, same way. Like I was like,
Really?
okay, yeah, like I really didn't have that much of a problem with Run DMC. It was more like because there was like a blurring of the line
Okay.
with Run DMC, whereas like LL Cool J, Missy Elliott got inducted last year, which makes
No
no sense
sense.
to me. Like there's nothing rock and roll about Missy Elliott. I love Missy Elliott. Like I love Missy Elliott's music. There's nothing rock and roll about
I
Missy Elliott.
agree. I
But
agree.
I do think there's like a little bit of a rock and roll attitude to Public Enemy and to like Run DMC and maybe and even like NWA because they were inducted as well. But
Okay.
like Madonna shouldn't be in it. There's a lot of people who are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that I'm like, you shouldn't be in this. Like Cher, I think, is getting inducted now. Like you are not a rock and roll artist. Like,
Okay. What does rock and roll look like, sound like, feel like to you?
huh? That is it's such a hard question to answer because any answer you give, you can find a rock and roll band or artist who goes against your answer,
Okay.
but is still rock and roll.
Okay.
And that's what's great. That's what I love rock music so much is because it's so like vast. Because there are people who would argue that heavy metal is not rock and roll, that those should be entirely separate. Because there's like not a huge heavy metal representation in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Like Iron Maiden's not in it. Judas Priest isn't in it.
Right.
Like, I mean, Black Sabbath barely made it. It
Barely.
took them forever, and
Right.
Metallica it took them a while. Like,
Yeah.
like there are people who think that like heavy metal is in no way similar to rock and roll, which I think is ridiculous and not
Thank-
like
Yeah.
it makes no sense. To me, rock and roll is more of just like there's like a rock and roll feeling, like a feeling of rebellion, of pushing the limits,
Okay.
pushing the boundaries, um, and it's like you have to be kind of like touching on like the taboos. So like sex, drugs, anarchy, anti-establishment,
Mhm.
anti-government, like all these things. Like that's rock and roll. Like, you know, that's probably the which is why I say like Public Enemy belongs, because Public Enemy stands for like a lot of that. Like Public Enemy and Rage Against the Machine are basically the same thing.
Same group.
Just Rage
I'm
Against the
willing to
Machine has a guitar. Like,
I'm willing to concede Public Enemy, Run DMC because of Walk This Way.
yeah,
Outside of that, no. Like, get the fuck out of
no,
here. Like, who we kidding? Like,
right.
um, when did rock and roll stop being rock and roll for you? Do you remember a specific decade, moment? You heard a
Oh
song.
yeah.
Okay, can you?
Um, when so actually I could tell you the last album I remember coming out and being like, oh, this is a good rock album, and then never hearing another one. And the last one was The Killer's Hot Fuss.
I remember
So I
that.
believe that was 2004,
Okay,
if I'm
yeah.
not mistaken. And I remember getting that album, loving it, and then just never hearing another one. So that to me is like when I was like, oh, I guess there aren't any good rock bands anymore.
Mhm.
Like when it all turned into this like kind of, and everything kind of went away and went into like kind of this emo phase where, real whiny voice, like, like
So Green
it
Day.
lost the edge. Like rock music lost like that edge that makes it like what it is. Like because there were no more like Iggy Pops or Mick Jaggers or Hendrixes. Like there were no people like that anymore. It was all like kind of whiny teenagers who had really nothing to talk about.
But let me get your thoughts on the '80s hair bands. I
Okay.
I like them. I still listen
Love
to them.
them.
Okay,
Love them. Love them. I
okay.
know it's trash music. I love it. I don't care. Love it.
I think some great songs came out of that era. I don't feel no. I have no shame listening to Motley Crue, White Snake, whatever. You
Yeah.
pick any one of them, even Rat with its they still tore off
Rat's
that one
amazing.
hit. You know what I'm saying? So
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Rat's
um,
incredible. Yeah, that Out of the Cellar album is one of the that's one of the
yeah.
best metal albums of all time. Like the people in those bands were so much more talented than their music showed.
Okay,
Like you listen like go back to like guitar playing and actually rap. So like their two guitarists, Warren DeMartini, Robin Crosby, incredible guitars. Like Warren DeMartini might be like a top 10 guitarist, but because he was in like Rat,
he
you
gets
don't
the knock.
really hear
Right.
it like
Yeah.
because they're writing, round and round and
Yeah.
lay it down like these like kind of almost like pop songs because like the music is very pop sounding. It's just with a electric like distorted guitar. Um, but no, those bands are incredible. Motley Crue is amazing. Skid Row, like Sebastian Bach is, I think, one of the greatest singers of all time. Like, no, those
I
I
still
I love that music.
I still remember the T-shirt he wore that got everybody in the ruckus. I'm like,
Yeah,
dang, bro.
yeah, yeah.
Um, what were your thoughts when grunge came in? Were you one of the few that said, you know what, no, like the '80s, the hair bands got it. No, it's not their time. We're not ready for a transition. Did you see? Did it feel like the youth of grunge was kind of rebelling against the older folk that were kind of because '80s hair bands by the time the '90s came around, they're in
Hmm.
their late 20s, early 30s. They're getting
Right,
jobs and
right.
families and stuff. And you had this wave of angsty youth, like, hey, we have a voice
Yes.
too. What were your thoughts when Sonic Youth and
Hmm.
Soundgarden, Pearl Jam,
Yeah.
Nirvana? What were your thoughts thinking with the change of the music?
So I know that most people look at it as though grunge killed hair metal. That like everybody's having nothing but a good time, hairspray, leather, makeup, and then Nirvana comes around and everybody's depressed and wearing flannel. I don't think that is what happened.
Okay,
To me, those two worlds did not exist together at all.
okay,
I don't think anyone who was making grunge music, whether it's Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains, I don't think they cared anything about what was going on down in the Sunset Strip in LA.
Okay.
Like the to me, hair metal was killed by 90s metal. So like bands coming out that were way heavier and way more like dark, because ultimately music got a lot darker in the 90s for sure. But hair metal was killed by bands like Pantera, White Zombie, um, like Obituary, like these like and like all these like Norwegian death metal bands. Like
Mhm.
that is what killed hair metal. Grunge just came out of the like remnants of 80s punk. So like the Descendants, the not the oh my god, what they the starts with the M,
The
the
Misfits.
no, not the
Okay.
Misfits, but that too, like
Okay.
the Melvins. Sorry,
Oh,
the
the
Melvins.
Melvins.
So
Yes.
like
Okay.
there was like these bands, and even like Sonic Youth. Sonic Youth was a little bit earlier than like Nirvana and Pearl Jam,
Right.
but that was like a transition in between like black. There was like Black Flag, Dead Kennedys, like all these bands, and then it transitioned into what became grunge. I don't think hair metal and grunge are even on like the same, like their paths did not cross. Like grunge to me did not kill hair metal at
Why
all.
do you think we had that perception? Because that's what it felt like. Because
Well, because the timeline matches.
okay,
I mean, like as soon as Nirvana came out, not a lot of people were buying Motley Crue albums,
true.
but it's just a coincidence.
Okay.
And grunge music is a lot more. So part of why I think we look at it now as being that way is because they took the same path. So 80s hair metal, you start out with bands like, you know, Def Leppard, Motley Crue, um, White Snake, like those are some of like the earlier ones. Then by the time you get into like the late 80s, there's about 500 hair metal bands. And there's like ones that you will never hear about in your lifetime who had major success, and you will never hear about, like, there was like a story I think from Lemmy from Motorhead where he
Okay.
was like doing an interview and he was like, you couldn't like swing a dead cat in LA and not hit
And not hit
somebody who
one.
was the singer of a hair metal band. Like there's just so many of them because every record label flew down to LA and was just signing anyone because
Yeah.
of how much money they were making. Then grunge comes out and the exact same thing happens. I mean, damn, Tommy Hilfiger and Calvin Klein were doing runway shows
That's
of
right.
grunge clothing.
I
Like it
remember.
became a fashion statement. And so you have Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains, Stone Temple Pilots, Soundgarden, like the main early ones. But then you look and then there's like Collective Soul, the Gin Blossoms. There's like Spin Doctors. There's again, right, same way as heavy hair metal, 500 grunge bands who most of them aren't even from Seattle, have nothing to do with it. Like, and it just became like like a factory for for bands, the same way hair metal did. So I think
Mhm.
people look at it as like, oh, they just went from LA back up to Seattle, but
Mhm.
to me, that is not what happened.
Um, let's go back a bit. Let's go back to the early origins of rock. Well, it's the 50s and 60s.
Okay.
So, it seems to me it's always, I don't want to say it's a taboo thing, but they never really want to talk about that early rock. I would say the black influence that it had
Hmm.
on, say, your bands from the UK. And it's always in these after clips years after. You may get a documentary here or there. You'll
Yes.
get a Chess Records movie, and it's like, Rolling Stones. Oh, that's what they did. They named this off of a Muddy Waters record.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, how much credit does Zeppelin, Clapton, how much credit do they lose if you do the deep dive and be like, oh yeah, that's what y'all just did. Y'all just did that, huh?
Um,
Or does that
It
even matter
depends.
to you? Okay,
Oh, it does matter. It does
okay,
matter because you should always be giving credit to your influences.
okay.
Always, no matter what genre you are, no matter what race you are, you should always be, because most of the time your influences are people who are probably not as famous as you are. Like
Mhm.
this would take like Led Zeppelin. Led Zeppelin became so huge, and most of their songs are rip-offs from like 1930s and 40s blues musicians. And the problem with Led Zeppelin is they did not credit hardly any of these people
Okay.
in their music. So these are people who, if they're still alive, which most likely are not, but if they are getting no money at all. Like they're, and their songs are being ripped off by this band who is flying around on a, their own jet that
Their
has a
own jet, right?
swimming pool in it.
Yeah.
Like, so, and I still love Led Zeppelin. I'm not like saying that they're probably the most talented single band of all time.
Really interesting. Interesting.
I
Okay.
think so. Like where you take all four members, like just being so good at what they did, like, but they were taking these songs from like Lead Belly and like Robert Johnson influence stuff and not giving any credit. Whereas you take like Eric Clapton, who is, kind of a known racist, and he was still like crediting Robert Johnson and, was doing festivals dedicated to Robert Johnson because he thought it was like crazy that people didn't appreciate Robert Johnson's music.
Hmm.
So I do think a lot of them did give the credit. Like, or hell, I mean, the Beatles were like always touting, people like Chuck Berry, Little Richard, and Wilson Pickett. They were always talking about how like these are the people that we listen to. Like, and the Rolling Stones did the same thing. Like the Rolling Stones and Beatles never like hid
Hmm.
that they were covering,
Hmm.
songs from like 50s black rock musicians, like the way that like Led Zeppelin did. Led Zeppelin just acted like they invented all these songs, which they didn't. So I think the Beatles, Rolling Stones, Eric Clapton did it the right way. They obviously took their influences, but they gave everybody the credit that they were supposed to get, and they tried to like, boost up these people who probably weren't getting much fame anymore, like had been, kind of lost in time.
Well, okay. Awesome. Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Elvis also give credit to those as well? That
Yes, Elvis was always giving credit
I'm
to
about to
people
say he
that,
grew up in a hood, like a.
yeah,
So
yes.
okay,
No,
so
Elvis always was giving credit. Elvis was always talking about like and trying to get musicians on to like reviews that he was on who were like black musicians. Like he was, a massive BB King fan
right.
and kind of not grew up with him because BB King was a little bit older, but like he grew up in Memphis, obviously, or outside of Memphis, and knew BB King like decently well, and he would always try to get BB King like involved in his, like get him shows when BB King was having a hard time getting shows. Yeah, Elvis. There's just a weird, like, kind of like spin on Elvis that's happened over like recent years of trying to make him seem like this like huge like white supremacist,
Okay, can you? Yeah,
which
yeah.
he isn't. I
Which is
mean,
weird to me. Okay.
yeah, he's not like he never was. Like now, I mean, you can say whatever you want about Elvis as like as far as like a singer talent or whatever. Like some people like him, some people don't, and that's okay. But to say that he was like this racist who was like stealing music from like black musicians is just not true. That's not what Elvis was doing. And I'm not even saying I'm just like this massive Elvis fan.
Yeah.
I mean, I like some of his stuff, like for sure, and I respect that he's like the king of rock and roll, which is maybe kind of arguable. But yeah, to say that he was like this like racist is crazy to me.
Well, here's the thing. I always felt with Elvis. I'm like, before Elvis, like he was the first superstar. Like
Yes.
there was nobody. I mean, like, I don't know. I tell people like, yo, I don't think y'all understand. Like Elvis was like the first global Taylor Swift, Michael Jackson, Prince.
Yeah.
He was it, and you've never seen anything like it. So I would expect people to be like, growing up in those times, like, oh my God, I remember how I felt when I seen him. There's no one better. I don't even have those arguments with people that with Elvis
Yeah.
fans. I just don't think people really understand. Like he was the first biggest fucking rock star in the world,
Yes.
and
Yes.
people still watch the Hawaii shows or the Vegas shows. Like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Well, look, a big problem that I've found is so much of like people's perception about Elvis and just like 1950s, like the rock music industry. comes from that damn movie Cadillac Records, which
Okay.
is such a horrible like representation of what the rock music industry was in the 50s. Now, not completely, like record labels were definitely screwing people over. That and which is that has happened since music has been recorded. So whenever that was, when Edison, invented the like the way to record music, whatever, and it will continue for
Always,
the till
nothing's
the end of
changed.
time.
Yeah, yeah.
So yes, that aspect of that movie is correct, but there's so much other like bullshit in that movie that people who know nothing about rock music or like the history of music, not just rock, but like history of music, watch that one movie because freaking Beyonce's in it. Watched it and are now like, oh my god, Elvis is a racist. Elvis was in the the Klan. It's like, no, like he wasn't. Like and I'm not saying there weren't people in the music industry who who weren't racist. There definitely were. Uh, just Elvis isn't one of them. Like he's not. He never was.
Okay. You said Zeppelin as
Yeah.
the greatest talented. So you put them over the Beatles, talent wise.
Yes. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't think the Beatles are very talented. Like as musicians, I think they're the arguably the greatest songwriters of all time. But as far as like talented musicians, like I don't know a lot of people that were listening to like Ringo Starr play the drums and were like, "Oh my god,
No.
this is the greatest drummer of all time." Like, actually, there are so many funny clips of like Paul McCartney or all the Beatles like shitting on each other, but one of them is this lady, this journalist asking Paul McCartney. This is back in like '64. She's asking him like, "Do you think Ringo Starr's the greatest drummer in the world?" And he says, "I don't think Ringo Starr's the greatest drummer in the Beatles." Like,
Damn.
he's like, not only is he not the greatest in the world, like there are people in this band who are a better drummer than him. He just can't do anything else.
So
Like,
what other groups would you put over the Beatles?
I mean, you mean like talent wise or just like
Talent wise. I'm
over?
sorry. Yes, talent wise.
I mean, most bands really like as far as just their talent as musicians, like technical skills, like all that. That's like completely different than like songwriting skills and your ability to create like a melody and stuff like that.
Okay.
As far as that goes, I don't know if there's a band that even touches the Beatles. But if you take like actual like talent as a musician of like how skilled you are at your instrument,
Hmm.
I mean, hell, I would put the Beatles pretty close to the bottom.
Okay.
Like,
Let
yeah.
me ask you. You are a musician. At what point do you say I'm good or I'm great at what I do? What's the
Uh,
how do hours and hours of practicing? You pick sweeps, arpeggios, and you drop down
yeah.
D's. So what? At what point did you say, you know what? I'm fucking good. I'm good at this. I got
Oh, I don't know
chops.
if I've ever said that. I, I don't know if I've ever been playing and been like, holy shit, I can't believe how good I am. Now, there are times where I feel good about myself because, like, I learn like a new technique or like a
Okay.
scale or something that I've been trying to learn and I can't get it down. Then I finally do, and I'm like, oh my God, this feels amazing.
Okay.
But I never am like, I am a god. Like, I don't know it. I'm firmly in the, in the group of like, you should not brag about yourself or
Okay.
like a true musician or true artist or whatever doesn't think they are one. So there's a quote from Bob Dylan when he was asked about Jim Morrison, which I love Jim Morrison, but Jim Morrison had a tendency to go around and refer to himself as not a musician, not a rock star, but a poet. And they asked Bob Dylan what he thought about that. And Bob Dylan said, a poet is someone who never refers to himself as a poet.
Okay.
And I think like referring to yourself as like a talented musician, it is hard for me to believe that you are actually a talented musician.
That's deep. Well, okay. How much more do you think you have to learn as a playing the guitar?
Uh, Another 25 years.
Okay. Why do you say that? What I mean, what?
I mean, I just don't think I mean, and I'm not talking like speaking for anybody else. It's just for me, like I have a hard time seeing the my skill level and putting that like and separating that from like the problems that I have with playing.
Okay.
Like I focus way more on the times that I make mistakes than on like the cool shredding that I can do. Like
Okay.
I'm more focused on like, yeah, but I missed like 15 notes. So I don't know if I ever really think that I'm just like an amazing guitarist. I think I'm decent. Like I definitely think I'm decent.
Okay.
But I don't know if I'm ever gonna think much higher than that.
What? How would you describe your style of play?
I mean, my favorite stuff to play is, I mean, really just like kind of thrash metal,
Okay.
like Slayer, Metallica, like early Metallica, Megadeth. Like that's what I've always enjoyed playing, or like in Randy Rhoads, Eddie Van Halen. Like that's definitely always like the people that I've enjoyed, like
Okay.
kind of mimicking. Like I said, I mean, I'm not in a band. I don't write my own music, so I don't necessarily have like my own style. I just have like a preference of like the type of stuff I like to play when I am just kind of screwing around.
Okay. So if the motivation hits you one day,
Yeah.
you will release music, or at least
Oh, for
attempt to.
sure, for sure.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I'm planning on doing it. Like, you know, probably pretty soon. Um, I mean, but I don't know about going on like some like tour or anything. I mean,
Hey, you never know, man. Hey,
yeah, I mean, I
the
could,
internet.
yeah,
um,
definitely could.
let's talk blues a little bit.
Okay.
Thoughts on Kingfish?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, he's
Okay.
amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you, I don't know how often you go out and go to concerts or blues festivals, but let me ask you, you know, given your background, ethnicity, nationality, when you go to blues festivals and
Hmm.
Kingfish is performing in front of 10, 20,000 people, and you see a sea of white folk, but you see that many black folk, what does that tell you? Or what does that say to you?
That is a great question. Because one, I mean, I guess statistically, there's going to be way more white people. I mean, the U.S. is 13% black. So there is like, there's that side of it. Like, people like, so I remember like Lauren Hill one time canceled a concert because she said there were too many white people in the crowd.
Oh
And I
my
thought
God.
that was, I mean, one, Lauren Hill's out of her fucking
Yeah,
mind.
she's a loon.
Um,
She's a loon.
but also, of course, there are. Like, there are way more white people in the US, at least. So, yeah, there's going to be more white people at your concert. Like, it's just I mean, it's just statistically, that's the chances. Now, if you go to a blues festival and it's like 90%, 95% white, I mean, obviously, there's like different layers to it because concerts are expensive and African American people, unfortunately tend to be in like a lower socioeconomic class for, a variety of like historical reasons.
Hmm, hmm.
So, uh, you know, it's the same way like, you go to a sporting event and it's way more white people,
For sure.
but it's because the tickets are fucking $500. So, people that are in a higher socioeconomic class are going to be the ones who tend to be able to afford to take their family or them even just themselves to a show.
Okay.
Um, and I mean, I think there's always been a thing of like white people just enjoying like or seeing like the music, the fashion, movies, whatever it is, like the style and like culture and aesthetic of like African American culture, and like I don't want to say just stealing it, which is definitely a thing that happens for sure, but just like being fascinated by it. So blues is just one of those things like they're like, oh my god, this is because this is so different than
Hmm.
blah blah blah. I mean, I ran on about that
No,
for a
but
while, but
I guess I should have prefaced my question. Beyonce will never have that problem because what black women will do is scrape, beg, borrow, rob, steal for those ticket
oh,
money to go
okay,
see Beyonce. So
right.
I guess I should have prefaced. Does the thought ever cross your mind like, damn, y'all created this music, y'all don't even come out and support? Why is there not more
See,
of his
okay,
kind?
because
You know what
that
I'm saying?
is interesting because I know, so many people that I know who like are African American don't give two shits about Jimi Hendrix, or like, or say that like they don't like rock. Like I've been told this multiple times about, people that I'm friends with who are like, oh, I don't listen to rock music, like, and have called it like white people music, which I always thought was like hilarious because I was like, I didn't know that there was like white people music.
Yeah.
But then they're like, like Bon Jovi and shit. And I'm like, that's hilarious because that is about like the whitest band that there is. Like besides like Huey Lewis and the
And
News,
you
Bon Jovi might be the whitest band on the planet. So when I heard that, I was like, that's awesome. Um, but then I was like, like, but what about like Jimi Hendrix? And I'm like, I swear to God, I've been told like we don't really count that. I'm like, what? Like,
damn.
I mean, and it's not necessarily for me to like how do I know? Like, I've never been African American. I don't know what it's like. Can't say like, oh, you're thinking about this wrong. Like, I'm not the person to be able to like make that kind of accusation to someone.
Mhm.
But I do like think like, man, like this is like like part of like your culture, like your heritage, your ancestry, like is all in this. Like, why wouldn't you want to come out and support it? And it's not like it's all like just a bunch of white people doing like your culture stuff. Like they are predominantly like black musicians as well. So like why wouldn't you want to support them?
Right. Right.
Like I don't know what it is. Like I don't know if it's just that like the generation being so much more into like whether it's like rap or pop, so they just like they see like rock and like blues and stuff as being like old people's music,
Mhm.
which could be a thing. I mean that for sure could be, but yeah, I don't know. It's I mean I don't know if I really have like a real answer because it's hard for me to know as like a white person like
No, I appreciate you.
like why would you
Yeah,
not
because I get
be
into these
into this?
arguments with my people, and I'm like, y'all don't even appreciate. I always get into these arguments. Well, we created the movie, we started. Okay, but do you own it? Do you control it? Did you give it away? Do you
Right.
come out and support? Like, listen. You ask 10 black folk, you might
Yeah.
have one that knows who Kingfish is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, um, and hey, I understand if that's the paying audience, that's the market. Then goddamn it, you market to them, and I
Yeah.
support it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get your take, how you saw it, or does it ever cross your mind like, damn, this is kind of weird. I mean, black artist, and where are the
Yeah, I've
black
never
guy?
really put it in the perspective of like blues, which is
Okay,
crazy because that I mean that is definitely like they say like jazz is the only like fully American art form, which
right,
is complete bullshit. I mean jazz is, but like so is blues.
yeah,
Like I mean like real blues like Delta blues, Chicago blues, like that is a purely American art form that was created by African American, like by I mean obviously like Delta blues like being like basically invented out of like slavery, like hymnals,
mm-hmm.
like that. Like if you dive into like the full history, like a lot of the blues songs come from like kind of like a gospel like hymnal, um, music like, and that is like just the tradition being passed down generation to generation.
Yeah,
But then it does feel like it is not like it stopped getting passed down
okay,
and it now has become just like people don't give a shit about the blues anymore
right.
because people would rather listen to music about like partying and like shit that doesn't matter. Like people don't want to listen to sad music like unless it's like fucking Drake who's like writing like whiny ass
Hey man,
music for
listen, no Drake
15-year-old
slander.
girls.
I'm Team Drake. I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry.
Man,
I'm sorry.
whatever. I mean, you want to talk about nepotism? I mean, that dude's
When it
uncle was
works, it
Sly
works.
Stone's bass player. Yeah,
I'm here for it. Um,
yeah.
so you talk to a vast amount of different people from different walks of
Uh,
life, and I was pleasantly surprised. So I guess in short answer, are you've always been intrigued by other people's walks of life? You just always been that type of person, like, hey, what did you go through, and why do you do this, and who are you, and what made you? You've always been that way.
100%. I am
Okay.
fascinated by people's stories. Like what is your life like? Like where do you come from? Like what was your childhood like? All those things. Like so, I grew up reading just a fuckload of biographies. Like
Okay.
that was like I would just go to like our school's library and just all the time just read biographies because I was fascinated to find out how a person got from point A to point B.
Okay.
How did you get from like being born in Detroit to becoming like the singer of this famous band. Like, how do you get from A to B to C to D? Like, and so talk. And I've always been fascinated by like different cultures, different like religious groups, like anything that makes people different. I've always been fascinated. Like, well, what is that like? Like,
Hmm.
what is that like for you?
Hmm.
Like if you're, Asian American, like what is that like for you? Like where are you from? Like where's your family from? Like what, like what's their culture like? What's your heritage like? Like all those things have been fascinating. So I've always enjoyed talking to people who come from like somewhere different than where I'm from, you know?
What's your main takeaway after all, when you're done interviewing them? And so what do you tend to like, okay, that's what I took away from this.
That we are way more similar than we are different.
Okay.
Way more. Now, like on paper, we might seem way different. Like you and I might seem way different. I guarantee you, if we listed down, like, let's say, what are our top 100 things, like aspirations in life or
Okay.
things that we want to see happen in the world, I bet 90 of them are the exact same thing.
Okay.
We might have 10 things that are different because we're different people, but I guarantee you we have more similarities than we do differences. Like, so like talking to people who are in like different industries, different walks of life, age groups, like all those things, you're like, oh shit, we're all like pretty similar.
Hmm.
Like we all kind of want the same stuff. Like we all have the same fears. Like we're all, like there's a lot more close, things that make us like close than make us, far apart.
Does it give you? Are you more optimistic? Um.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm definitely pessimistic in a lot of ways, like with like details. So like the way I look at the music industry, I look at it very pessimistically, like just because I see it going drastically downhill.
Hmm.
But ultimately, I feel optimistic about it because I feel like eventually it's gonna, swing back up. But I feel pessimistic like in the moment.
Okay.
So I have a lot of that. Like I have a lot of like immediate pessimism, but long term optimism.
Okay. That's dope.
Yeah.
Um. Okay. So I kind of want to get into some of your interviews. Um.
Mhm.
Former porn actresses, porn stars, whatever.
Yeah.
How did you say, you know what? I want to talk to these women and pick their
Yeah.
brains?
So I had a friend who, uh, she was, like kind of, this is like way before I ever spoke to anyone in like the porn industry, but I had a friend who was saying that, like, she was just saying a bunch of like crazy shit about like, oh, porn stars, like, I would never do that. Like, they're all drug addicts or like, come from like bad childhoods, like, just saying like all that kind of stuff. And I was like, I doubt that's true. I mean, it's probably true for some, but I bet it's not as like shady of an industry as you think it is. And then I just was like, well, damn, I have a podcast. Like I could try to like just reach out and see if anybody would talk about it. And yeah, like a bunch of people were like, oh yeah, I would definitely come talk about it. And they were all like super nice, super intelligent.
Okay.
Um, they didn't come from like broken, I mean, maybe broken homes, but shit, 50% of people come from broken homes. Like there was no like, um, it wasn't like this outrageous, like, oh, every single person came from like abusive childhood. Like it was just the same rate as anybody else. Probably the
Mhm.
same amount of doctors come from broken homes. Like it's all the same stuff. And everybody was just very like genuine, open, like open to talk about whatever. Like actually probably some of the most confident people I've ever talked to in my life are women who are in porn. Like, yeah. So and then just getting to know them, you're like, oh wow, like you're way like the people have huge misconceptions about all of this and about who they are and like what they do.
Okay. Has your talks with the women, how has it shaped your outlook on women or how you view women, especially in that line of
Um,
work?
I mean, like I've definitely always been a kind of um, I mean, not just with women, but I guess just people in general. Like, there's I don't know if you know people who are like this, but there's a lot of people who think like, oh, you have to earn my respect.
Hmm. My mother.
I think I think that is such a bullshit way of living.
My mom is that
I
way.
think
Yeah.
you are born with respect.
Okay.
You are a human being. You should be born from the moment you were born. People should like respect should be the automatic way that people look at other human beings.
Okay.
You should. I think people can like ungain your respect. You know, people can
Hmm.
do horrible things to you, and then
Hmm.
like, you know what, I don't respect you anymore. Um, so I've always had this like inherent thing of like I respect all people, like until they give me a reason not
Not
to.
to. Gotcha.
And so like I want people to have as much success in life as possible. I want people to be treated well. Women are not treated well. I mean, in some aspects, yes. Like in some of the you know, on the surface ways, you know, like yeah, like women don't have to pay for a drink at a bar. Cool. Like it's not really like a win. But meanwhile, you know, like I can't imagine how terrifying it would be to be a woman in most walks of life, you know, like um so I've always kind of I felt like had like a lot of respect for women. Like I've never been like a, you know, I wouldn't think like a misogynistic person.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm sure I've had like thoughts that were not great, like, and have learned from those thoughts. But talking to people who are in porn, like you, because you know, there's always like a double standard of like men should be able to have sex with as many people as they want. Nothing wrong with that. But if a woman has sex with more than 5 guys, they
Oh
are a
God.
complete
Yeah.
whore. I think that's such a horrible way of looking at things. Like either nobody should be able to or everyone should be able to.
Okay.
And so like when you talk to women who are in porn, obviously they've had sex with a ton of people. Like, but there's nothing about them that gives you the impression that they have. Like there's nothing about them that makes you feel like you shouldn't respect like these women. Or and that's how you should feel about everyone, I think.
Hmm.
Like it's, you know, yeah, I mean you got I don't know. So I don't necessarily like see it as like, you know, anything in particular to porn stars. It's just people in general.
Do you think you benefit from that because you're able to have a conversation with these women? You don't bring the baggage into the interview. You're like, well, you know that's it's wrong in the Bible, and you know the average.
Yeah.
We've seen you've seen these podcasts that the average guy is
Yeah.
berating a woman. God forbid
Oh
she had
yeah.
a, you know, and you're able to have these very open conversations with these women. They're very genteel, very
Yeah.
demure. They're, you know, they're happy to share their story with you,
Yeah.
and there's no judgment there.
Right.
Um, do you think that's kind of part of why you get such a good reception because you they don't feel
Yeah,
like they're going to be attacked by you or judged by you per se?
I think so. And I'm always like pretty upfront about it. Like I'm not gonna, you know, I'm not gonna ask you anything like super personal. I'm not gonna like, you know, I just like I always kind of like preface it with like, we're just gonna have a conversation. We're just gonna talk and like, you know, see see what you're like. Like what's your world like? Like there's
Yeah.
not, you know, nothing like I'm not trying to get anyone, you know. Like there is a lot of like podcasting and like a lot of interviews where you can tell that there's an ulterior motive of
Mhm.
like, oh, I'm trying to get this person. I'm trying to get them to say something that's going to get me a bunch of, you know, clicks.
Yeah.
I could care less. Like I just enjoy talking to people. And you know, and yeah, so I mean I think that probably has a lot to do with it that they I guess maybe trust me that I'm, you know, just trying to just learn about them. Like
Yeah.
I'm just a curious person. Like I'm not coming in with any judgment, good or bad. I'm just, you know, I'm just a very curious person.
Um, eh, I was watching one of your older videos, and you seem very just very well adjusted. Like no issues. Like man, hey man, life is good. I'm doing my thing. Hey, I'm shredding when I want to shred. You know
I
what?
don't know about that. Man, I know. I mean, I definitely, yeah, I definitely have some, some issues. Oh yeah.
Well, how are you able to deal with your issues? What works for you, or you know, I don't. I'll bring in the
Yeah.
whole.
No, no,
You
that's
know,
fine. No, I mean, I'll talk about what, you know, anything. I mean, I've talked about it quite a bit on the podcast, but like I used to have, I mean, I guess I still do, but like bad addiction problems. I mean, with
Okay.
alcohol, I never really like screwed around with other stuff, but like I was like a heavy drinker for like a while, and then I quit like 4 or 5 years ago.
Oh wow,
Um,
congrats. Okay.
thank you. But like, so and with that, there's like depression, anxiety, and all this stuff, and I still have like crazy panic attacks every once in a while. Like,
Okay.
but I've gotten much better at kind of like not like thinking worst case scenarios. Like I'm definitely a worst case scenario type person
Mm.
where like whatever happens, like oh my god, the world's about to end. So like when you say like oh I seem like well adjusted, I appreciate it, but boy, I am not.
I mean, because
Yeah,
I've been like I said, I've been binging you for like a good week, and I'm like,
yeah, yeah.
yo, he's all together. Like, okay,
No, I'm trying to be like
okay,
I try like definitely try like you know, I quitting drinking is like a kind of a big thing, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah,
Um, like but I still smoke cigarettes. I still eat pretty bad most of the time. I work out now and like eat better, but like
okay,
I think I try to like put myself maybe on like the right track.
okay.
Like, I don't know how fast that track is going, but at least it's like, I'm going hopefully trying to stay in the right direction. But
Yeah,
I definitely have hang-ups. I get a flat tire every once in a while. Like,
I say that because it doesn't bleed over into your content like
yeah,
others would, and
yeah,
you know, it it gravitates like it's like I'm watching like, yeah, he's got it together, he's got it figured out. Like I haven't seen you crash out, spaz out, break equipment. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it happens, but I'm not saying. You know, 'cause you do this long enough, you may have a
yeah,
moment on camera where life just got the best of you and you had a rough day and you're here
yeah,
venting. And I haven't seen that from you. Not that I'm looking, but I'm just
yeah.
like,
No, no. I
yeah,
mean, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I definitely never have had like a meltdown publicly, like, which, never say never, but I mean, I could definitely pull a Martin Lawrence someday and end up on a freeway
try to
holding a
kill me.
gun. Like, yeah, I am not above, a full Martin meltdown, but I don't know. I mean, I just like I don't know. I mean, it's kind of the way I look at like anything. Like I try to be a pretty decent person. 100% not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but like if I notice I'm doing something that is like kind of ruining things,
Hmm.
I try to figure out how to stop it.
Okay.
And I'm sometimes successful, sometimes not. But like I don't really put like a huge amount of thought into it. I just try to be decent.
Now, is that from self motivated, or is that tricks you may have learned from therapy or watching other people by
Mm,
chance? Or
it's probably both. I
okay,
mean, I would definitely say it's just a combination of a lot of things. A combination of like one, just like being around long enough. I mean, I'm only 30. I'm not like, I haven't been around that long, but like over time, you start to care less about things that don't matter.
okay,
And you start to kind of figure out like, oh, what you want to do, like where you want to be. Like if we were having this conversation 10 years ago, it'd be a train wreck because I was a bit of a train wreck. Like,
okay,
um, and, still kind of had like some of the same like passions that I have now, but I wasn't doing anything with them. Like,
okay.
it wasn't really until just a couple of years ago I started doing all this like podcasting stuff. So like, I mean, there's a bunch of time where I was just like had no idea what I was gonna do, like no idea what I wanted to do. I was not really like in a great headspace, like,
Okay.
and just over time you start to kind of get out of it. You start making some changes that help you get out of it, like
Hmm.
and life life tends to work out if you just stay out of your own way.
Okay.
And I was kind of like getting in my own way a lot. And once I stopped doing that and started just kind of letting things happen,
Mhm.
like it's kind of fucking crazy how stuff sort of works. Like it just does. I mean, not always for
Yeah.
sure, but yeah.
That's dope. If you weren't a digital creator, what do you think you'd
Hmm.
be doing? Because clearly you have journalistic investigative skills.
Uh,
Would that ever cross your mind?
that's a good one.
Crime
Uh,
scene.
oh wow,
I mean, the amount of
yeah,
time you pour
that's
into your
actually a good one.
research. Yeah.
Um, Well, I went to school for history. I mean, I got a degree in history, which is
Okay.
probably pretty obvious to most people. But like, I got a bachelor's degree in history, and my plan was to be a history teacher, to be like a
Oh,
high
okay.
school history teacher.
Okay.
So it's probably, and I was kind of like heading down that path until like the podcast stuff started kind of working out a little
Okay.
better, and I was like, well, I'm probably not going to be able to do both because I don't know if there's a lot of high schools in Texas that are going to want to hire somebody who's talking to porn stars. So I was like, oh boy, I'm going to have to make a decision, either scrub the internet or try to scrub the internet of
Yeah.
all this stuff I've done and be a teacher, or say fuck being a teacher and see what happens with this. And so I chose that option. Like fuck, fuck
I
being a
think you
teacher.
I think you made the
I,
right decision.
I feel so much better about the decision.
Okay.
Like even if like I didn't have much success or anything, I would still feel better about it because I like doing this. I would have liked being a teacher. I know I would have, but I don't know if I would have liked it anywhere near as much as this.
Gotcha. Do you as far as the porn stars? Now I remember back in the 80s and the 90s, all the metal guys, they married
Yeah,
them, date them, or whatever, and it was like,
yeah,
okay, that's what they do. Has
yeah,
the image or the pushback, the stance softened on women who do porn nowadays? Is it more or less
yeah.
taboo? And it's like, okay, I hang out with her, she does movies, no big deal.
It's way less taboo for
Okay,
sure. I mean,
okay,
it's well, one, it's way more available, so way more people are exposed to porn, and at a way younger age. Which I don't know that that's necessarily a good thing, but like 80s, 90s, you had to go to a video store and walk through a beaded
hey man, listen, the brown paper
curtain,
bag,
and yeah, and then you run into the deacon. It's like, oh, what are you getting? It's
or
like,
no, when you go to the cashier and she looks at you and you're looking at her,
yeah. Or like you put a copy of the Green Mile on top of it, so that
and you just slide it so they can just scan the tag.
yep, yep, yeah. I mean, I so with the internet, obviously it makes porn like a lot more accessible. And then I mean, I think like seeing like it's just become way more of a mainstream industry.
Okay.
And anytime that something becomes more mainstream, that erases taboos. I mean, it's like kind of par for the course.
Hmm.
um I mean, obviously there's still a bunch of people who, like, if they saw somebody dating a porn star, would be like super judgmental about it.
Hmm.
I mean, it still happens. Look at, like, there's like, well, I was gonna say Zion Williamson, but that was like kind of a shit situation. But there's like there are people who still, like, will date a porn star, and immediately all anyone can talk about is like, oh my god, this person's with a porn star. Like, how disgusting! Like, how can he let his girlfriend or wife have sex with other men? Like, there's still going to be that pushback. That probably will always happen. I mean, I
Well,
don't think
I,
I don't
I
think
used
that
to
goes
think
away.
that at some point that was kind of a scale of success. If you were dating when it's like, okay, you made it.
Yeah,
This is the first
yeah,
step to stage of success. You date a porn star, and then you move up to somebody
yeah.
else.
Yeah, it's the Tommy Lee scale.
Yes,
You go
is
from
that
porn
you?
star to TV actress to
Yeah, yeah,
Pamela Anderson. Yeah,
yeah. It just
yeah,
always seemed like, okay, he's made it. That's what you do at that
yeah.
at that stage of success, and you just move on up. Okay,
I mean, I think for rock stars, it's way more that way because the worlds are so similar. Like
okay,
comedians, musicians, and porn stars have very similar lives.
okay.
So I think that is. I mean, I don't know if there's going to be a lot of like, you know, like physical therapists who are married to porn stars, but I guess they could. But it's more of like the lifestyles have to be
They have to match.
similar
Yeah,
enough.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. But would you date a porn star if she's retired?
I mean, either way, I mean, I probably would. Yeah. I mean, I would never date or not date someone based on their job.
Okay.
It has to just be the person. Like, so yeah, if I met somebody who was, worked at fucking McDonald's and had, and I liked them, then sure. If I met somebody who was important and liked them, then yeah, like that would never deter me or make me want to date someone.
Okay.
It's just, it's a person's job to me is very much like that's like near the bottom of things that I care about.
Okay. Um,
Yeah.
let me get your thoughts on first your demographic. What are you guys listening to as far as rock? because you said rock is dead,
Uh-huh.
and it, you don't think it's coming back to the anything close
No.
to what it used to be. So, what do you guys listen to? Are you guys going back to the old stuff? And you're just like,
Yeah.
God, really? Okay.
No, that's all I listen to. I mean, I go back and yeah, I just either listen to the, songs that I've always liked, or I take those bands and be like, "Damn, is there an album I haven't, heard from this band, or a
Mm-hmm.
song I haven't heard from this band," and go through and do like a deep dive. I mean, I did that with like who did I do that with the other day? I think maybe was it Queen? No, not Queen. Shit. Maybe it was the Allman Brothers. I think
Okay.
I did it with the Allman Brothers because I was like, man, there's like multiple albums I've never listened to by this band.
Gotcha.
And so I was like, well, shit, it's basically like listening to new music. I mean, I've never heard it, but it's from a band who is awesome. So yeah, that tends to be what I do now.
You know, it's funny you mentioned the Allman Brothers. My mom back in the day had a T-shirt with the Allman Brothers, and I'm like, "Who are these white
Yeah.
dudes? Why are you wearing a T-shirt?" I didn't
Not all of
know.
them.
I didn't
Yeah.
know they were that. They were the. You know, like it's
Yeah.
the Allman Brothers.
No, there was a few. I mean, it wasn't all white. Like they had a
She
couple of
had. It was.
couple.
I guess it was the. I forget his name. The three. The main.
There was Greg and Dwayne were the two
Yeah,
brothers.
and
Yeah.
then it was one
And then there was
other.
their cousin, which is the one that just died.
Right. And
Trucks. Shit, what's his name? Something Trucks. But oh my god, I can't remember. Oh, no, Dickie Betts.
Dickie. That's right. Dickie Betts.
Yeah.
I just seen a clip of him playing. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Oh, he's
Yeah, he just
incredible.
passed. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Dwayne Allman's actually probably damn near close to being in the top 5
Yeah,
best guitarists.
as a kid, I didn't know. I mean, as I grew up, I'm like, oh, the Allman Brothers. Oh, this one they did share, and I'm like, these guys were
Yeah,
rock
yeah,
gods at one point. So, it's just funny you mentioned the Allman Brothers. Um,
yeah.
what are your thoughts on the AI, the future of AI music? Does it
Oh,
concern you?
I hate it so much. I mean, I've already thought music is kind of like going to shit anyways.
Okay,
Um, but the fact that it is kind of good is terrifying.
okay,
Like, I mean, I've heard some where I was like, this is getting real close. Like, there's still that uncanny valley to it where, like, every once in a while you can tell you're like, oh, okay, this isn't real. Like, but I do not think we're far off from it sounding identical to like a real song. I hate it. I hate everything about AI. Hate it.
you're gonna be that
I
old
think
man,
it
like,
is
damn
horrible.
it.
I'm already there. I hate it so much. I think it is going to ruin. I think there's just. I mean, people have always been that way. You try to find a way to make things easier.
Yeah.
That's why we invented cars. That's why we invented planes.
Yep. Yep.
It's to make life easier. But you get to a point where like maybe this shouldn't be easier.
Okay.
Like maybe a computer shouldn't be able to write an entire book for me.
Okay.
Like there's a few of those things where you're just like AI is going to ruin so much stuff.
You don't see any positive applications for it in music per se.
Not for music. No, 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 no.
Okay.
No, I think maybe like in the medical world. I mean, there's probably some things that it would be good for. I mean, I'm no expert in that by any means, but I mean, there's probably some things that it is good for. But when it comes to anything art related, whether it's music, movies, writing, no, I think there is not a single thing it could be good for. No,
Okay.
no,
Okay.
I already want computers out of music anyways. So I definitely don't want there to be a computer on steroids making your music, like,
Mhm.
or having any control over music. Like, I mean, music is so much better when it was recorded manually onto a tape. Like it just is undeniable that it sounds better. Like I've never listened to a digitally remastered album and been like, oh, this sounds better. Like it
Okay.
doesn't. It sounds fake. So yeah,
I fell into that trap, getting everything, all the only the remastered version. I fell
yeah,
into that because I'm like, it's cleaner. Um, it's clean
it is, but it's not.
processed.
But it's not supposed to be. That's the problem. Is that
Okay.
like so that with like the whole vinyl craze. Well,
Okay.
this drives me nuts with people who buy like new music on vinyl. Like you are out of your goddamn mind. For one, the only reason that vinyl that you should have vinyl is so that you can actually listen to how the music was released
Mhm.
originally. So if you own any vinyl that was made after like 1995, I mean, you might as well just buy a CD, because that's basically what any of this shit is. Like, I know people who are buying like, like Tyler the Creator vinyl. Like, you're an idiot. Like, you're just buying a giant CD.
That's crazy you said that because I was in Amoeba Music in LA a couple weeks ago and I saw the Nipsey Hustle
Yeah.
vinyl, $50.
No.
I'm like,
No, it is it's the biggest like rip off going right now. Like, people making it seem like vinyl has made a comeback, like, for new music.
mm,
It's not meant for that. It was Their comeback is people like rediscovering, like, their parents' music or their grandparents' vinyl,
mhm.
and putting it on, playing it on a record player, and you're actually finally getting to hear what this Van Halen one actually sounded like when it was recorded. Cause like I did it. Like I've listened to like the first Van Halen album. And when I was listening to it, I was like, this is holy shit, this is crazy. Like I'm hearing Eddie Van Halen mess up. Like
Okay,
you're hearing all
gotcha.
these mistakes. Like you're
Yeah.
hearing like a cough in the background. It sounds like you're in the room with them when they're
Oh, they're
recording it.
recording it. Yeah.
The problem with the digitally remastered version is that it's some nerd sitting at a computer whose job is to take out all the mistakes. But when they do that, they're taking out the things that make it like human, and
Okay.
that ruins music. So all this like digitally remastered bullshit just ruins music. And that's what vinyl is now. It's an MP3 put onto a big black disc. That's all it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't even disagree with you. I agree. I mean, you're spot
I
on.
mean, it is, yeah. Like I d- like it's amazing to listen to the originals. Like an original album from like the 60s and 70s is incredible. Like it is such a weird feeling when you can put headphones on and listen to like, a Sly and the Family Stone album, and you're like, "Oh my god, I feel like I'm in a time machine." Like that's what
Yeah.
it feels like. But that's not,
No, I'm with you.
it's
I
not
think
what
my
happened.
problem is because on the production side, everything has to be crisp, clean, clear. I can hear it
Yes.
on both sides. You know, I've trained my ear to listen for that, and when I
Yeah.
hear it, I'm like, okay, that's good. But then, like you said, the raw monaural sound before the
Yeah.
digitals. So I
Right.
totally agree. But it's just my ear just been, you know, I,
Well, and that's the producer ear, which is supposed to be that way. And it
yeah,
was that way for producers back then too. It was just physically impossible to take out every single mistake
right,
because you're recording on like reel to reel. Like
yeah.
you couldn't edit. I mean, you can obviously they edited shit, but to edit music in 1968, you had to take a razor blade and slice a
Slice
piece of
it
tape.
and then paste it.
Like, yeah,
And
like it wasn't just like going into FL Studios and, scrubbing over a click. So it's so much easier to just take out every single mistake. Now, in 1968, if FL Studios existed, or if, whatever GarageBand, if any of those things existed back then, they would have done it,
Mhm.
because they have producers' ears. And that's a great thing because, like, you can hear things that the average person cannot hear, like, doesn't, distinguish.
Yeah.
Um, but they couldn't do it, and so they were forced to leave in the things that made it sound like a human made the music. And
I-
that's
Is it fair for me to say you came from a musical family to a certain extent?
um no one in my immediate family is musically inclined at all.
Okay.
I mean, they all listen to music, so like I grew up, being exposed to uh like my dad had like a very set type of music he liked. Mom had her own type of music. There's a little
Okay.
bit of crossover. um But no, and there's like, distant family who are like musicians, but I would no, there's no like genetics. It seems like that have worked into it. Yeah.
So who was it? Dad's idea to put a guitar in your hand, or you just
It was
gravitated
my
towards?
idea, I
Okay.
think. I mean, I don't really like I definitely remember getting my first guitar, but I remember wanting a guitar before I got it.
Okay.
I don't know why I wanted it. I must have seen someone playing a guitar or something and just thought it, and it just struck my you know, I for whatever reason, I do not know. It was so early in my like childhood that I don't remember it, but I know for sure it was like something I wanted because I asked them. Like I've asked my parents,
Gotcha.
you know, why did y'all buy me a guitar? And they're like, you would not stop asking us for one, so we bought you the cheapest little
The
like
cheapest,
shit guitar that
the
we could
baby
find. I was like,
Stratocaster,
oh, okay.
the baby Fender.
Pretty much. I mean, it's yeah, pretty much like so they were just like, yeah, to get you to shut up for Christmas, we bought you like,
Yeah.
just bought
Okay.
you like I think it was a First Act from Walmart.
I
It
know
was
what
like
that is.
Walmart's
Holy
brand of
cow.
guitar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That I think
Yeah.
my dad the madman he was. I forgot who I saw. Somebody had a flying V, and I'm like, I want that for
Mhm.
Christmas. Sure enough, I had a fucking walnut
Amazing.
flying V, and I was like, couldn't tell me nothing.
Dude, yeah, I know. It just like struck me, I guess, like really young. I mean, I always like grew up hearing rock music and stuff, so there is a connection, like, to the guitar. But I don't know why it was the guitar versus the drums,
Okay.
or, because I definitely didn't want a drum set.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know what about the guitar did it, but
What
it did it.
what brands? Fender, Ibanez, Schecter.
Um, oh, I've always had like played Fender. That's like my favorite guitar of all time is the Fender Strat.
Okay.
And that's what I got when I was like, shit, maybe 15 or 16. Got a Fender Strat and have kept. I mean, still have it
Yeah.
and played it for a long time. And I just like bought a new guitar, which is like the first guitar I've bought in over 10 years.
Okay.
Yeah, almost like 14 years actually. It was like a Jackson, Randy Rhoads, like the Rhoads signature.
See there, that goes there. There's my argument right there. Randy
Yeah,
Rhoads the best.
but I went from Hendrix to Rhoads because it's the cream white like Woodstock
Yes.
Hendrix guitar. So
Well, you
like
know it's funny because that Hendrix movie they put out with was it Andre
Andre
3000
3000.
wouldn't even let their fan was like, you can't even show the Fender
I
that he
have a
played.
whole no, I have a whole thing about that bullshit. Like I'm so sick of movies. I mean that movie.
It was
I
trash.
don't know if I've ever been more let down from a movie
I
because he was so amazing.
yeah.
Andre 3000, he was so good as Jimi Hendrix, and for them to waste him as playing Jimi Hendrix on making a movie about like 3 months of his life
Right.
where no one even gave a fuck about him,
Yeah.
and Jimi Hendrix family, who seemed to be the most difficult damn people on the planet, wouldn't let them use any of his music, so he had to do like shitty covers.
Mm-hmm.
It was, God, what a letdown. And they've done that so many times. They just did it with David Bowie not that long ago. Made this horrible movie about David Bowie when he was like 19. I'm like, who gives a shit? Like, show me David Bowie, like Ziggy Stardust, like all that. Do like Ray and Walk the Line. Those should be the blueprints for any music like biopic.
Okay.
Ray and Walk the Line. Those two movies came out basically the same time, and they show childhood to peak of fame. Like that's how every movie like that should be. And Elvis, the Elvis movie did it too. Like, yeah, yeah, God, that Hendrix movie
There's an
pissed me
old
off.
Hendrix movie that came out on HBO. Wood Harris played Jimi
Wood
Hendrix.
Harris, yes, they
Yeah.
used to play that damn thing on VH1 Classic
Yeah.
all
Right.
the time. Dude, he's such a bad Hendrix, but I loved that movie as a kid. Oh yeah, with Wood Harris, man,
How did you like Queen Bohemian Rhapsody?
hated it.
Did you?
Hated it. I thought Rami Malek was horrible. So that's another thing that ruins it for me is when
Okay.
it's lip syncing. I can see the lip syncing drives me nuts. And so that's why I was saying also with like Walk the Line, Ray, Elvis, like the Elvis movies, like it's them doing the singing.
Mm-hmm.
So like, and now I get it. Like it's going to be pretty damn hard to match Freddie Mercury, but don't make the movie. Like,
I know.
don't have
I'm
some
more than
actor lip syncing. No.
yeah. I'm more than sure there was somebody out there that could have sung and played Freddie.
Well, they were going to do it with Sacha Baron Cohen
That's
at one
right.
point, yeah.
That's
And
right.
then he apparently went to the meeting with like the rest of the guys in Queen, and they pretty much hinted that Freddie Mercury was going to die in the first 30 minutes, and the last hour and a half of the movie was going to be about what Queen did after Freddie Mercury died. And Sacha Baron Cohen was like, "No, thank you."
No, I agree.
And yeah, I guess over time they talked him into making, a Freddie Mercury movie instead of a Queen movie. And
Okay.
yeah, which actually, so another one that's amazing is Rocket Man, the Elton John
I
movie.
haven't
With
seen it yet, man. I'm late.
it
I'm late.
is
It is
incredible, and he does
okay.
his own singing, and he doesn't sound like identical to Elton John, but it's close enough. He has like the cadence down of like
Mm-hmm.
that '70s Elton John, and it's I think is it Taron Egerton,
Yeah,
I think it's him.
from the
Yeah,
Kingsman movies. Yeah.
yes, yes, he is incredible as Elton John, but because it came out around the same time as Bohemian Rhapsody, nobody gave a shit because
Right.
Bohemian Rhapsody got way more like of the buzz. No, Rocket Man is amazing. And it
Uh,
is a full, like, no holds barred telling of Elton John's life. Like
okay.
Bohemian Rhapsody, they took out all the bad stuff about Freddie Mercury and made it like a PG-13 movie. Rocket Man is not that. Elton John is a complete asshole in that movie. It's like, yeah, he's an asshole in real life, so makes sense.
Um,
Yeah.
being the historian you are, so you're pretty much up to speed on all the shenanigans in Hollywood, the film industry per se.
Uh,
Let me get what are your thoughts on mainly DC Marvel? I'm just curious to see what your thoughts
oh,
are.
I am on the Scorsese team of like
Really?
when Martin Scorsese said that he
Yeah.
hates Marvel movies because they're basically just amusement park rides.
Okay.
And I was like, that is the greatest way I've ever heard someone describe a Marvel movie. Is just being like an amusement park ride. Like I hate those movies so much. I mean, I loved them until Endgame, and
Okay.
then I was like, oh, this is going to be a perfect ending. Like Endgame, and Endgame is a perfect ending.
Mm-hmm.
And then whenever I found out that there was 15 more being developed, I was like, oh, y'all are just. I mean, I forgot this is Disney. It's seeing how much money we can just rip out of people's pockets.
What do you think about these companies basically willing to risk losing money to push agendas that are not that the main majority of the public don't care for? I'm talking
Uh,
Games Workshop with Warhammer 40. I'm a Warhammer 40K guy. I'm like, oh, y'all want to do this? And right before
yeah,
Henry Cavill does the thing with Amazon, he may walk. Disney doing Disney.
that's right.
All
Yeah.
the
Well,
so yeah.
Disney's on another level of just. I mean, a part of me, the capitalist side of me, I guess, is if you own a company, you should be able to do whatever the hell you want with that
True,
company,
true.
except for illegal. I mean, void of, illegal activity, you should be able to run that damn thing into the ground if you want. It's
Hmm.
your company.
Hmm.
Um, but then, there's a part of me that's like, do we like do we really need to make like Simba disabled like or whatever the like like I mean Snow White doesn't have to be blind like there's no reason for that like or just any little thing of
Yeah.
like yeah like I mean I don't care about like changing races and all that because they're not real people. Now it's
Okay.
different if you make a movie about George Washington and you have Denzel Washington play him.
Okay.
It's like well same last name but still like but if you make a movie about Snow White and you ever be Hispanic, I don't care. I mean, Snow White's not a real person. Who gives a shit? I mean, I know that in the book she's probably white because it was written by I guess like the brothers Grimm,
Yeah.
or
She's German
so,
if I remember correctly.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I
So I guess she's white, but she's also not real. Like the Little Mermaid one was the one that got me. Where I'm like, why the fuck do y'all care that the Little Mermaid is black? Like, she's it's not a real thing. Like mermaids aren't real, so like why not make her whatever race? Doesn't
okay. Well,
matter.
let me ask you that perfect segue. Do you give some credence to those that kind of grew up and identified this character as some people see themselves as these characters, which I understand.
Yeah.
I don't want to see a black James Bond. I'd rather see you know another black spy do something. I don't need James Bond does not need to be black for me, right?
Oh,
Because
right. So make a
just
black James Bond, but don't call him James Bond, or
yeah,
make like make one for us,
yeah,
or
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
yeah. Um, that's Oh, that's interesting. Like I so part of me, yes, part of me is like, don't, James Bond is like white, but also James Bond's kind of a weird example too, because James Bond's like, even in the books, isn't one person. Like James Bond is the name of the
The name of
spy,
the
like
right,
the
right,
code name.
right.
So in theory, you could have like a female James Bond, a black, Hispanic, like whatever James Bond. Um, I always think like make a like make a movie like with like dragons and shit, like
Okay.
that has like an all black cast, because
Okay. See, now
that's not a thing being done.
you're getting with the
Like,
Tolkien. God damn it! In the Lord of the Rings.
but like I mean, maybe you don't have to do with Lord of the Rings, but I'm just saying like you don't have to like and I'm not saying they shouldn't take like a Disney character and make them a different race. Like I like if I was a kid who was a not, I mean, it's easy for me to say that because I'm white. So like I grew up and like every cartoon character would look like me. I mean, like I always grew up with like being able to identify with like any, Disney characters and shit,
Hmm.
except for like Aladdin.
Hmm.
That's about like one of the only ones I couldn't. So I don't know what it's like if I was, like a 6-year old like African American kid. I
Hmm.
don't know what I would think then. Like, would I be looking around and being like, why aren't there any Disney characters that look like me? Like, I don't know. I mean, like was that not something that happened with you? Like, did you have that like as a kid?
Wow. I need to put it back on me. Good question. Good question.
Well, I'm just wondering, like, because I have no like frame of reference for it because
Okay.
I just grew up how
So,
I am. Like,
well, for me, I had Sesame Street, Electric
mhm.
Company, 1, 2, 3 Electric Company. So they always had these
Yeah,
Bill Cosby, Fat Albert, and then I
right,
remember
right.
they had a cartoon Cops, and the chief was he was a black he was the
Mhm.
chief of the cops was black, and it was like, oh, that was a big deal.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
and then we had Gargoyles, voiced by Keith David. We all knew it was like that was a brother,
Right,
you
right,
know.
right.
It's one of those type of
Yeah, yeah,
situations. So
yeah,
there were always
yeah,
kind of specs thrown in growing up, but it's funny you mentioned Middle Earth. My wife is a huge Lord of the Rings fan, and I'm sitting here like, damn, what would that look like with black folks in Middle Earth? What would that look like?
yeah,
What would
yeah.
their version of Middle Earth be?
Because
Because
that's what I would wanna see, like, I want to like, show me, like, one where there's, like, people fighting dragons and shit, like, because
yeah,
there's a million, like, the white version of that, like, why does it have to be, like, if we're making a movie, I guess, not necessarily, like, for, like, an African American audience, but, like, why does it always have to be like like an inspirational,
hmm,
like, or like, I mean, I know people like who I'm friends with who like hate it every time that there's like a slavery movie that comes out.
I am.
And I never
Yes,
necessarily understood it because, like to me, it obviously has a different effect. But they were like, yeah, like we don't want to see they're like, these movies aren't made for us. And I
right.
was like, oh shit, yeah, I guess I mean, it's kind of ignorance, but like, I guess they wouldn't be like, why would you wouldn't, why would you want to go see that? And like, I had a friend who was like, yeah, I would much rather like see like a movie where there was like a Harry Potter. Like he was like, y'all have like Harry Potter and shit. Like we don't have
We don't
that.
have
Like
that
anytime they make a
exactly.
movie for us,
Yeah.
it's like a slavery movie or like a The Help or something. I'm like, oh yeah, 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 yeah. Which that's interesting because like I've never really seen it that way because I don't know. I guess just growing up, being a
Well,
white kid, like you don't really see it
that's
from
the
the other
thing, and
perspective.
those type of discussions always they always trying to put it back on you, like, well, and I'm like, no, we should be wanting to create our own stuff to see ourselves in our own
Yeah,
image, but because we sit and wait for Hollywood handouts, you kind of back in
yeah,
the same predicament.
yeah,
Nollywood, Bollywood didn't wait for Hollywood. They create their own IPs with their own. Even
yeah,
Russian action movies,
yeah,
insane.
yeah. Oh yeah,
The
yeah, yeah,
the one that just came out, Sisu or Tisu. I'm just like, this shit
yeah.
is.
Oh, that movie was incredible. Yeah. Yes, but like why like why aren't those movies made? Like or like a, like a Star Wars, like, and I'm not saying like to take Star Wars and make it like an all black cast, but like why aren't there like sci-fi movies that are like, an all black cast? Like that's not a thing. Like
Well,
I feel like do that. Like that, I mean, Hollywood should do that, but they won't. They
Here's the
won't do that
running
because that doesn't win Oscars.
right.
What wins Oscars is making, The
Here,
Help or like The Blind Side, which to me, like The Blind Side is the most racist movie ever made. Like,
oh my god,
like
oh my god.
it is. I mean, it's a rich white woman who kidnaps a young African American man because he's about to go to the NFL and make their family millions of dollars. Like, movie's super racist. Like, but that's the movies that get made, and that's the movies that win the Oscars and all this shit. Like, but yeah, I mean that's not how it should be. It should be,
I
every
agree.
genre should get the representation.
Right. The running joke in our community is, if we did it for ourselves by ourselves, you end up with a Tyler Perry film, which means it's going to be low quality. Um,
But
but
but why does it have to be like? I mean, I know exactly what you're saying, but
yeah.
like it's not like there's like some lack of talent or lack of, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, why is it? Because I know that is a way that, like, because that's one of the reasons why Hollywood won't fund usually like an, a black production
Mhm.
of a huge budget.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, Black Panther is about the closest thing to it, and it was still being run by Disney. Like, none of
I
those
don't.
people that make those Marvel
That
movies
doesn't
had
count to me.
any
Yeah. Yeah.
say
Yeah.
in
I
it.
agree.
Right.
That
Yeah.
doesn't
It's
count.
still ran by the people of Disney. They still have the final say. Like, sure, you have like, a black director, but he doesn't have any say in what's going on in this movie. But like, yeah, like why is that the kind of the thought, that keeps that from happening? Is that
I
it's just,
I would say this, that my community would have to want to do better and put out, if they're going to do this for themselves by themselves, put out the quality product. It would kind of force Hollywood to be like, okay, we get it, okay, to have them kind of capitulate to a certain extent. But like I
Mhm.
said, they complain about Hollywood, but then you're still in it, so you can't have it both ways. So I don't
Yeah,
fall victim to the argument like that. I'm like, nah, if you want your own stories told, then tell your own stories, and stop waiting,
right.
using their avenues to do so. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess a big part of the problem is that it costs so much money to make a movie, and I mean, who is going to be able to put up that money? But Universal Pictures or Warner Brothers, Fox, all those like major companies are the ones
Mhm.
who are willing to put up that money, and if they don't feel like they're going to get a return on their investment, they're not going to fund it, and they're probably worried that like not enough people are going to see the movie, and if and there's still a lot of people who aren't African American who would not go see a movie that is billed as being a black movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a ton of white people, and not just white people, but like people who aren't African American who would be turned off by seeing that movie, which is the really shitty part of it.
I think the closest thing we were getting to is like the best man movies. Like it was like
Yeah.
the 2000 version of, like, let's say Harlem Nights and Boomerang, like mid to low
Right.
budget, BC list stars. And guess what?
Yeah.
Here you go, black folk, and y'all, and we
Yeah.
watch it, and
Yeah.
so
That's
that's
what's sad about it. Like, cause like, why can't you have like a Chronicles of Narnia? Some like big like epic movie.
yeah.
And yeah, I guess there's like I mean, Hollywood is such a fucked up world that I mean, there's so many problems with Hollywood, and a lot of issues that involve race and have for over 100 years and probably still will.
I think it's an institution that outsiders just don't understand, doesn't make any sense, and it shouldn't. It only
Yeah.
makes sense to those that are in it, live in it, thrive in
Right.
it, run it, and survive it. So I don't
Yeah.
expect, the horror stories come out of Hollywood. I don't expect their regular person. Well, why would they do that? And why? And it's, what, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's a thing that they just do, and just leave it at that.
Yeah,
So
or it's like whitewashing. Like when people are like, "I can't believe they're whitewashing it." It's like, you can't. I believe it. Oh, I for sure believe it. I for sure believe that there's a Hollywood producer who says, we're probably going to make. I think it would be better if Julia Roberts played this role than Kerry Washington."
yeah,
That is for sure happening. Even though, in my opinion, Kerry Washington's a better actress, but still, I'm just saying, like, it's ultimately most likely becoming the decision of a white producer who, is more likely going to hire a white actor.
you know what? George Lucas put up his money to for Red Tails. It flopped.
Oh, really?
Yeah, black folk
Yes,
didn't go
I
see that.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that
I
tells you,
know.
the market tells you, even black folk
Yeah.
don't want to see black folk up there on the big screen, big money's behind it. Like they just like to complain. That's just a running joke in our community, man. It's like,
Yeah.
we don't take y'all serious
Huh.
because you don't take it serious. So
Yeah. That's really unfortunate.
yeah, yeah,
Like, I mean, I just, obviously like don't know, like I don't know the community all that well. I know it like a little bit, but I'm not in the trenches. So like,
yeah,
yeah, but man, that really sucks. Because I would definitely feel like if growing up as a kid, I would really hate that I didn't see myself
yep,
in movies.
right.
Like
And you
whether
would,
whether it's Disney or like,
mm-hmm,
because like yeah, like I'm a massive like Harry Potter fan, and like if I was Hispanic, even like I'd be watching the news like there ain't a fucking person in this movie that looks like me. Like yeah, it'd bother me, but I watched the movie and every one of those motherfuckers looks like me. So it's super easy. Like I'm watching it happy as could be. Like
yeah,
it's hard to put yourself in like the another person's shoes and be like, damn, like I wonder how they're watching this movie, like
yeah,
what they're thinking. Yeah, damn.
yeah. I appreciate the empathy in in your answer. That's dope. Let me ask you before I let you go.
Okay.
What does the future look like for Cody Tucker?
Oh boy. Um, I mean, I think just keep doing what I'm doing and hope it, hope it just keeps working. Like, I mean, I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I mean, I'm sure I'm going to change a few things up here and there every once in a while. Like, I might get bored with something and kind of want to, spice things up a little. But no, my plan is just to keep pumping out the videos. I mean, I'm gonna actually working on like a book
Okay,
version
okay,
of all those videos. Actually, I mean, it'll probably end up being more than one book because there's so many damn like stories that I have. So like, I'm working on that right now. Like getting I mean, it's kind of a pain in the ass to get a book
mm-hmm.
published, but yeah, I'm in the process of writing the book right now
That's
and
dope.
trying to get like the agent, all that's you know business side of it that I hate. I hate the business side of
Yeah,
anything. So like, yeah, I've been kind of putting that off and just writing the book and not worrying about that side of it. But yeah, so I would like for it to try to come out like around Christmas, but
okay,
we'll see. We'll
okay.
see. I'm just gonna keep going and see what happens.
Are there any stories you did research on that you were like, I can't put this out, or this is too dark, or even it bothered you, or you learned some
Oh,
things you're like, ooh, this
that
bothers my soul.
is a good question. I mean, I have a pretty strong stomach when it comes to, I mean, anything like that. Um, like there's not really a whole lot that I'm gonna be like squeamish by.
Okay,
Um, but I know, I mean, I did like, I was kind of like gonna look down like the avenue of like going through like serial killers and like
okay,
mass shooting, like that kind of. And then I was like, I don't know. I mean, there's so many people who do like true crime videos and stuff, so it's like, how how unique is this really going to be? I
hmm,
mean, what I'm just going to mention a serial killer and then go through all the bad shit they did. So I kind of dropped it because I was reading about Albert Fish. And I was like, oh boy, I don't know if I could. I mean, this is just not really going to be fun for anyone to hear about a dude who like, killed and ate like a 6-year-old girl and then wrote a
yeah,
letter to the girl's family telling them
right,
like what he
right,
did. It's like, yeah, I don't know if this is the avenue I want to be in. I mean, I'm fascinated by it. Like I'm fascinated by like serial killers and all that kind of stuff, like true crime. But there's just so much of that out there that like, I don't know. I think I found like a little niche for myself and I like that little avenue I'm in.
that's what's up. So, anything in particular you're looking forward to, but aside the book aside, or the book that you're working on, anything else you
Uh
like?
no, I mean nothing really specific, like not like a specific event or anything like that. I just kind of want to just see where it goes. I mean, and just kind of keep, kind of riding along and see what happens. Like I don't know. I don't really have like, mean, I know somebody like a few people have mentioned oh, I should have like a Netflix series. And at first I was like, boy, that just sounds miserable to have to like deal with like, other people. Like that's part of why I like doing this is because like I have no one to answer to.
Okay.
Like I just kind of make my own shit. Like I don't have like an editor. I mean, I do it all myself, which
Yeah.
I enjoy. Like I
Okay.
like the whole process. So to kind of like put it into someone else's hands sounds horrible. But I do kind of also like the idea of like maybe doing like start doing like documentaries,
Okay.
maybe like something like that.
Listen, man, the streaming sites, they cut big checks. Okay. There's
I know.
not real much of a downside to it, but I
I
get what
know.
you're saying.
Yeah, I know. I might. Yeah, I definitely might look into, trying to do something like that. Cause yeah, I mean, it would be interesting to do, like, I think, but I've definitely been like kind of putting some thought into trying to maybe do like a full length, like documentary instead of like a, little clip
Yeah.
kind of thing. Maybe
Yeah.
trying to like kind of expand the length of some of the stuff. Like maybe
Okay.
do like a rock and roll, like rock history documentary or something like that.
Yeah, I'm fascinated that there's no one your age that does these rock deep dives, and I'm just like,
No, no. I mean, that used to be a thing. Like, there was a fella named Sam Dunn who used to make really amazing like heavy metal documentaries. He made
okay,
one called Metal: A Headbanger's Journey, and he did one I think called The Story of Metal. It's like an 8-part series, and he was probably like in his early 30s. And I thought they were fascinating.
yeah,
And yeah, but other than that, there's nobody that really like everybody's just trying to be kind of like an influencer instead of like, making something like interesting. Which hey, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Get the money out, however you
yeah.
can. But like, I don't know. I kind of want to just make shit that people might like. So yeah.
No, man, you greatly succeeded. I'm a huge fan. So I was talking
Thanks,
about
man.
you 3 4 days ago. Like, listen, I was playing a clip. I'm telling you, man, he got next. He got next. Cody Tucker. Cody Tucker. I was like, I didn't know this. I
Oh
didn't know that.
man.
I knew that. I didn't know this. So, I
Yeah,
was just floored. I'm so
man.
glad the algorithm sent you my way, because
Oh yeah.
um
Shit, man. That's awesome.
yeah, this was awesome. Thank you for educating me and enlightening me. And I'm still gonna fly the Randy Rhodes flag. But what you said
Oh
about
yeah.
Hendrix, I really didn't think about it like that. And
Yeah.
now you give me a newfound perspective on Hendrix's impact. So I,
Yeah.
I thank you for that. Yeah, definitely,
No problem,
definitely.
man. Yeah, I mean, it's yeah, it's just one of those things. Like you have to kind of put yourself in a time machine
Yeah,
for like a couple minutes and be like, what would I have thought if I walked into a room in 1967 and heard this?
yeah. I
Like,
would have walked out. Yeah, like cut the strings, broke the neck. I'm like, I'm
I
done.
mean, that's what Eric Clapton did. He like basically went and like threw away one of his guitars. He's like, I'm fucking done. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I try to always like put myself into like that perspective whenever I think about something. Like just to think like it's easy to look at stuff from 2024 and
Right.
have your thoughts about it because I do it all the time. But
Yeah.
like when you put yourself in 1967 or 1945, whatever the year is, it's weird how like your perception of it kind of changes a little bit
Yeah.
when you just kind of for a second like transport back and and see how you look at it then.
Final question before I let you go.
Okay.
Um, do you see rock the way the older demographic does? That's the first part of the question. The second
Mm,
part is, what would you like rock's legacy to be moving forward, or for those that you know?
yeah. Oh wow, I think I probably do look at it. I probably look at it differently because I didn't get to live through it.
Okay.
So like a lot of the times whenever I talk to people who are like let's say in their like 70s, like 60s, 70s who live through it,
Mhm.
they don't have anywhere near the appreciation of it
Really?
because to them it was just like, this is the music that was on the radio. Like they weren't diving deep into like like you go ask somebody who's like 70 who listens to rock music and ask them to name like their top 5 favorite Led Zeppelin songs. They're going to name the 5 that were played on the radio the most.
That's it.
like
Yeah.
like they don't they didn't like go through and listen to like the whole album and find like the deep tracks and all that, and like didn't care about like the connections and like studying the history of it. So I probably in some ways have more of an appreciation for it because like I didn't get to experience any of it. So
Okay.
like I'm like so I don't have necessarily that frame of reference. Like I perfect example, like my grandmother's brother was in town one time for Thanksgiving, and he was like telling me like that he used to go to concerts all the time. And I was like, "Oh, who'd you see?" And he was like, I can't really remember." And he started naming a few. He named Jimi Hendrix, The Doors, Elvis Presley, and like two or three other like huge bands. And he was like, "Yeah, I didn't really care for any of them. Like Jimi Hendrix one was way too loud. Jim Morrison was like kind of drunk and didn't really sound good." And in my head, I was like, I would sell my soul to have been able to see those concerts.
Right, right.
So that's what I'm saying. Like he had no like historical appreciation for it because it wasn't historical. Like he
Okay,
was
so they didn't
he
realize
was
the
just
impact
there.
these guys were having at the time.
Exactly. No, he didn't know. I mean, it was just this is some new guy named Jimi Hendrix. I mean, he saw Hendrix in like '67, so it was like the first year that he was in the U.S. So I mean, he didn't know that Jimi Hendrix was going to go on to be like basically the face of the guitar.
Oh,
Like he didn't have that in his head. No one. I mean, the people who were like in tune knew, but the average person didn't really think anything of it. I mean, imagine if you went to a concert and saw somebody who had just started performing like 6 months ago. Like you might not even remember that you saw them because, there's no impact of that person.
okay,
That
what
was who Hendrix was for him.
I put it back on you.
Hmm.
Anybody you've seen early in their career and you're like, it might be a problem. And you were correct.
No,
Really?
no, no. Everyone that I've ever seen, whether it's even not even live, but just seen like I don't know if I've ever seen someone at an early stage of their career and been able to like guess that they were going to become massively famous.
Okay.
Only different sort of difference would be like maybe Post Malone,
Okay.
because like we're kind of from the same area and had like mutual friends who like grew up with Post Malone,
Okay.
so they kind of knew him like from growing up with him and would kind of tell him about it. But he was already, I mean, he blew up like overnight, so he was already famous. Like even he wasn't. It wasn't some dude I saw at a club somewhere that I was like, oh, that guy's gonna make it. Like, I mean, he was already like, had gone viral, as they say.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know if there's ever been someone that I've seen where I was like, where I guessed that they were gonna become, huge.
Yeah, it's hard for me to hear you say that and they're like, yeah, it was some guy named Hendrix. I'm just like, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah, I mean, that was his frame of reference for it because, like, to him, it was just some guy that I mean, they paid $5 to go to a concert and saw him. I mean, like, that's how it was for a lot of people back then. Like, because concerts were so cheap that it was nothing to just be like, yeah, I'll go pay $5 and go see this person. I don't even have to know who they are. Like, it's just a thing to go do.
mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not going to go pay $300 to go see somebody in concert unless
Oh
I am a
hell no.
massive
Yeah.
fan of theirs already.
Right.
So, I mean, I think that a lot of people went to concerts back then and were not fans of that person.
Okay.
They just did it because it was a fun thing to do. Actually, my grandmother, her first date with my grandfather, it was to go see Led Zeppelin, and my grandmother didn't know who they were. She was just like, "Yeah, it's just a thing to go do." Like, that's that was just kind of a like she was like, I don't even really remember it.
My dad took
But
me to my first Kiss concert. I had to face paint. Uh, it was Paul. It was
who
Paul.
were you,
Uh,
Paul?
what's his character called? Not Starman. Is
The
it
star,
Starman? This,
yeah,
yeah, I
Star
had
Star
the
Child.
with Star Child. You couldn't
Yeah.
tell me they were the greatest fucking thing. I got the single. What was the single that I was made for loving you? I wore that
Oh
record
yeah,
out.
yeah,
I had the record player
yeah.
that lit up that had the lights in the front. Wore that record out. You couldn't tell me a goddamn thing about Kiss.
Yeah.
So, okay, what
Oh
what
my
what do
god.
you think Rock's legacy will be? to your generation, are you worried that it's not gonna
I don't know, man.
resonate the way it resonates with you?
Oh, it won't. No, there's no way. To me, rock music's legacy is that, you know, it's a t-shirt at H&M.
Damn.
That's rock music to most people my age. Is like, oh yeah, I saw their like I saw a Nirvana shirt at H&M, so I bought it cuz I like the font, or I like the logo. Like,
Okay.
I don't know how many people I know my age that I've seen wearing like Slayer shirts or Nirvana shirts, Beatles shirts, and have no idea who they are. Like, that's so to them, that's their image of like a rock band, is that they've seen their shirts at like seen like the Kardashians wearing a Slayer shirt.
Okay, but you don't think that would help like initiate curiosity? Be like, okay, who is this Slayer? Let me look them up. Who is this Kurt Cobain? Let me
It
look them
might
up.
may it might initiate some curiosity, but it won't initiate like a fandom.
Okay.
I don't. There's something about like, I don't know. There's something where like it's not always you that finds music. Like, sometimes it like kind of just works its way into your life.
True. True.
And the people that are supposed to listen to Slayer, like, it'll happen. Like, they will find Slayer at a very young age. Like, Slayer's not one of those bands that you're going to stumble upon at 50, or be like a 16-year-old girl and be like, oh, Kendall's wearing a Slayer shirt, let me
Yeah.
and then a year later see them at a Slayer concert. Like, that ain't happening. I think it's a fashion statement. Like, rock and
Okay.
roll has become a fashion statement for
It's
teenagers. Like, it's,
that
yeah,
hurts to
pretty
hear that.
sad. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's it just makes you, I guess, more appreciative that it existed. Not,
Yeah.
don't be
I
sad that it's over. Be happy that it happened. Like, that
right.
whole thing. Yeah,
No, I love when I find old songs I never knew existed, like
yeah,
Tangerine Dream, Led Zeppelin. And the only reason I learned
yeah.
that song because I seen Zach Wild play the chords to it. That was one of his
Mhm.
favorite riffs. And I'm like, well, let me go see what this. And I'm listening. I'm like, oh shit! Like I'm 40 years late. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
Ozzy Osbourne, Snowblind. I'm 40 years late. I'm wearing
Hmm.
these songs out back to back. Do you understand?
Yeah. Dude, I just did the same thing with the Grateful Dead. I hated this band for like
Really?
my entire life until, like, I would say maybe 6 or 7 months. Yeah, maybe about 8 months ago. And then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give this shit a shot, like, one more time, because they're such an influential band.
Yeah.
Like, I gotta be able to, there's got to be something in there. And then I just went through it open minded, listened to him again. I was like, oh my God, I love this band. And I mean, I went into where all I did for like a couple months was listen to like Grateful Dead live albums. And it felt amazing. It felt you know, like I discovered a band, which, it's a band that's been out for 50 years, but still, like, it felt amazing.
That's I remember the video on MTV. They played Grateful Dead. I think I Will Survive, and they're all skeletons playing it.
Oh,
And I
Touch
was
of
like,
Grey.
yeah, I was like, who the fuck? What
Yeah.
is this? And I'm a kid. I'm like,
Yeah.
what is
Yeah.
this?
Yeah. Dude, the Grateful Dead are amazing, man.
Yeah.
Like, it's just one of those things where I was like, no, this is just like LSD Jimmy Buffett. Like, I'm not into this bullshit. Like, and then I like listened to it, like, oh no, I was wrong. I was wrong this entire time. Like, I don't know. There's something about like when you discover like a band that there's also something kind of sad about it, because like, you become a fan of this band that like you can't go see.
Right.
Like, I mean, I could go see the like half-ass version of the Grateful Dead that's still around, but like, I actually, quick little story, I had this happen. So me and a friend got like hammered drunk one night, and we were just going on YouTube, and we went down this like, I don't know if you ever listen to Typo Negative.
I do.
Um, so we went into this, like, I was like kind of familiar with them, but not
Mhm.
much. And we went down this rabbit hole where we were like almost crying, like just me and me and me and this other dude just hammered on like Keystone Lights, listening to fucking Typo Negative, being like, oh my God, this band is like changing our lives or whatever. And we were like, I was like, dude, we have to go see them in concert. Like, we have got to go see them. And we were like, dude, yes, like whatever we do in life. It was like a cocaine idea, like, where it's like, we got to start a business. Like, Like I was like, dude, we have to go see Typo Negative. Next that night, I'm about to be asleep and I'm like, oh yeah, let me go see when they're gonna be around Dallas. Looked it up. Peter Still's been dead for 10 years. I was like, son of a I was like, we're never gonna get to see him. I texted him, I was like, dude, he's dead. Peter Still's been dead this whole time. I was like, oh my God. I mean, it was devastating. Like I almost cried. Like I almost cried for somebody who died when I was like, yeah, like 10 years ago. Yeah.
That is
Horrible.
hilarious.
It was like the worst night. It was to go from that high to that low.
Yeah.
So quick of
That's
being
a
like,
buzzkill.
dude, we're going to go see Typo Negative. This band has changed our fucking lives. Like we're sitting there listening to the song, I Love You to Death, like almost crying, like, like broing out. And
Yeah.
then find out this dude's been dead for 10 years. It's
That
like,
is
son of a bitch.
hilarious. My man, Cody
Yeah.
Tucker. I've had you on for far too long. We could do this
Man,
another
this has been
hour.
awesome.
Man, thank you. No, sir, you are what's the term? You are a maven. Yes, indeed. You are a maven.
Thank you.
I wish you nothing but the greatest success in life, man. I would love to have you back on and do a part 2 to this because
Anytime, man.
yeah. I'm just great. I'm grateful for this. Thank you. Where can the people find you? Any last words for the people tonight?
So you can find me on I think I have an X, a Twitter. I've never used it, so maybe skip that one. Instagram is at the Cody Tucker. YouTube, the Cody Tucker Show. I mean, I guess same for Spotify, Apple, anywhere you listen to podcasts. I try to post a little like history reel every day, Monday through Friday. New episodes of like the full podcast come out Tuesday. Actually, this coming, in about 45 minutes. A new episode will come out with a comedian, Brian Simpson. It was awesome. Last words. I don't know. Keep a wrinkle in it, I guess. I mean, guess that's about it. Family motto,
Yeah. Cody, thank you. Thank you so much for this, man. I definitely want to bring you back on and get more into the rock and everything music because I think you have way more than the average. I mean, I'd put your skill set up against 70-year-old former rocker. Like you guys can go toe. I'm like, well, this kid knows his shit. Like, so this was a hoot. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Oh yeah, hell yeah, man.
Definitely. All right, my good man. Right. You enjoy the rest of your night. I'll talk to you soon.
Man. Later, man. Yep. Sounds good.
All right. Shout out to Cody Tucker, man. This is one of my faves right here. So please go subscribe to him. Shout out to Cody Tucker. Hopefully my mic wasn't popping too much, but I gotta go buy some cables and redo the wiring here to the audio to the whatever the case may be. So once again, shout out to Cody Tucker. Thank you for your time. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I definitely got some out of it. I'm gonna get out of here and let y'all get up out of here. Enjoy the rest of y'all night. Y'all have a good night. Peace. Oh, tomorrow night, the Hebrew Israelite Civil War continues. For those that are on the urban side of things, Ringo and New Breed done jumped Rollo. I got to ride for Rollo in this one. I'm going to ride for Rollo tomorrow night. Y'all enjoy the rest of y'all night. Peace.